Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center for Blues Development Camp. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Brought to you by E&B Granite. Bernie Fedorko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Period as the Blues get it to Thomas. 38 to go on the power play. Hard pressure from Kerfoot to Bolduc. Score! Zach Bolduc! We're finding out where his office on the power play is. 4-0 St. Louis.
Well, that's what it sounded like when Zach Bolduc used to score goals for the St. Louis Blues. He will now be doing so for the Montreal Canadiens. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're broadcasting live today at the Centene Community Ice Center, where the Blues are taking their morning skate with their development camp.
It's not a morning skate, I promise.
A couple of years ago, we saw Zach Bolduc at this, Alex. And then he cracked some eggs over my head, and then...
Oh, God, I forgot about that. We were friends with them.
Oh,
Damn.
That's going to be our thumbnail when we remember Zach Bolduc.
Yep.
Although we've come... Oh, God, so many sad R&B 90s songs coming to my mind right now.
I only recognize one of them.
Zach Bolduc has been traded to Montreal, and in return, the Blues have acquired a right-handed defenseman. Logan Mailloux is how you pronounce his last name. He is 22 years old. He is big. He's 6'3". He's 215 pounds. He's got a big shot, from what we understand, Alex. He is offensively inclined. His NHL career has been off to a very slow start, and that it hasn't really gotten off to a start just yet. But it sure sounds like the Blues believe that's going to happen now. Alex, this has been a trade that has been met, I would say, with apprehension among Blues fans, because they gave up a very good player in Zach Bolduc, and none of us are going to say otherwise here in this segment. We all like Zach Bolduc, and we think he is a good player and will continue to be a very good player in the NHL level. What was your reaction when you saw this news come down?
Disappointment, because you see a guy like Zach Bolduc, who I think emerged as somebody who looked like he could be a top six potential winger for this team's future. And frankly, got some reps with Robert Thomas on the top line this year, and it felt like, hey, you know, they might have found another gem late in the first round. But the more you think about it, you've got to give to get. And as much as we've been talking about trading away a Jordan Kyrou, that has now passed us. And the Blues have to look at the area of strength. And Doug Armstrong told us this on the draft show after they selected Carboneau. He said, our area of strength on this team is the wing. We're set. We've got a lot of pieces already here and that are coming. So you knew somebody was going to get traded, whether it was Bolduc or a Jake Neighbors or somebody in the minor leagues. And to get something for the value of what we believe Zach Bolduc is, that's what the Montreal Canadiens just had to give up. I mean, when this is the part that I tried to reason with myself in the matter of 10 minutes where we found out that they traded away Zach Bolduc, and I was upset.
Yeah. And let me tell all of our listeners right now, Alex was legitimately upset.
Yeah, like on a scale of 1 to Mikael Granlund signing with the Blues, I was like a 6. But when has Doug Armstrong made a move that you look at and you say, what are you doing?
Petro.
Sure, but
yeah.
There was a lot more that went into this one. Let's isolate
I think at the time, some said that with TJ Oshie.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you on that one. But if you were to ask Doug Armstrong about TJ Oshie, he would say we were at a position where we couldn't pay all of these guys. We had more coming.
And they wanted to change the complexion of the roster.
We needed to get leadership. Like I always talk about the Ben Bishop trade, but there's reasoning behind that. They had a number one and a number one coming in Yaroslav Halak and Jake Allen. So what I'm getting at is Doug Armstrong doesn't make bad trades in terms of going out there and giving something away for what ifs. They obviously believe that this kid has some potential, and just reading a little bit about him, BK, was texting with somebody from the Montreal Canadiens who said, look, he's an offensive guy. The Canadiens had a pretty big logjam on their blue line, and there wasn't going to be room for him, meaning they just got Noah Dobson. He's got a big shot. The play-by-play man for the Springfield Thunderbirds has seen plenty of him this season. Ryan Smith was texting with him and said one of the best defenders in the American Hockey League this season was was named to the AHL All-Star team, the number one team for the AHL this season. He was a part of. And this was a line from somebody who does a lot of coverage for the the Montreal Canadiens as well. One of the most interesting names to look at cracking the Montreal Canadiens team out of camp this year, Logan Mailloux, has the skills to pay the bills and skates much like a smaller player. The only person that skates better than him in the Canadian system is Lane Hudson. So, skates fast, offensively inclined, big, and not afraid to take penalties.
Can I say who I think this sounds like? Sounds like the Blues got another version of Philip Broberg.
See, who I was thinking was Joel Edmondson. Now, Edmondson wasn't offensively
That's why
gifted.
I think Broberg more so.
Yeah.
Skates well, good shot, offensively inclined, doesn't lack in terms of the physicality, more than happy to be involved in some of the physical presence on his own blue line. It sounds like the Blues have now done with this player what they hoped to do with Noah Dobson.
Yep.
Where, hey, we need our second pairing
And Bo
defensively.
Byram.
Sure, our second pair defensively right now, we need to upgrade that. We need to get younger, we need to get bigger, we need to get stronger. And if we can do those three things with one player, that's what we're looking to accomplish early this year in free agency. They now have that on the left side with Broberg, and it looks like they have acquired that now in a 21-year-old defenseman for their right side.
Yep.
So I get what they're trying to accomplish here, and I actually kind of love the move. Not because I think it's going to work. I have no idea if this will work. How could anybody? What we know about his prospect stat that you want to take a shot on. And I would add this, Alex. It is so much harder to find a player with this kind of profile than it is a potential 20-goal scorer on the wing. So much harder. 6'3", skates well, offensively inclined defenseman. Good luck.
Yeah. Hearing Tim Taylor talk about this yesterday after day one of prospect camp, he was going through some of the development for some of these younger players, and he said, we've got a lot of guys going from juniors hockey to pro hockey, and he said that's just the next step for these guys to get to the NHL. And the reason I'm bringing this up is when you look at where the Blues are at, Kairou's no trade is kicked in. He is here. Dylan Holloway is a core piece of this team moving forward. Jake Neighbors, a core piece of this team moving forward. They loved what they found out about Jimmy Snuggerud. What the rumors were about Jordan Kyrou of where the Blues felt like, what Sarah Valley was reporting, that the Blues felt like because of what Jimmy Snuggerud provided, that Kyrou became expendable. I think you just changed Kairou's name to Bolduc's name, and they said, look, we've got a lot of wingers. We're top-heavy on that side. We've got pieces that are coming. Let's see what we can do to upgrade another area of deficiency. It's pretty evident that the centerman trade market is not very hot right now. And so where do you go next? Well, what did Doug tell us last week on Monday? We'd like to upgrade the defense if we can. This is a 22-year-old defenseman who plays the right side, which you don't have much of any in your system right now. And with the exception of Philip Broberg having the Stanley Cup playoff success the year prior to the Blues offer sheeting him, you're right, BK. This is the guy in the same position. Broberg may have had more NHL games under his belt than Mailloux has, but he has a whole lot of a team saying, no, you're not good enough to make our NHL roster, which is wild for the Canadians to say. You're going to stay in the minor leagues and work down there. You'll get a cup of coffee. He just didn't get the shot in the playoffs that Philip Broberg did in the playoffs, which is why you're not hearing his name so much. Some of this sounds like I'm rationalizing why they made a trade that may not look as good on paper to a lot of people. You're right, BK, which I don't say very often for hockey segments.
I didn't like that. Yeah.
There's a lot of 20-goal scorers, potential 20-goal scorers in the organization in terms of these wingers, Pekarczyk, Jakub Stancil, Otto Stenberg, Kaskamaki. They got a lot of them. What they don't have in their system, minus Colton Parayko, is a right-shot big defenseman that can play top 4 minutes this season and fit into your core, and they just got him on an entry-level deal.
You know why they don't have that? Because nobody has it. It's a unicorn. I just looked this up. NHL players, defensemen under the age of 25 that shoot from the right side. Alex, is not a high threshold to clear. 30 or more points last year. Defensemen under the age of 25, right-handed, 30 or more points. How many of those do you think there were in the league last year?
No, it's a BK game. I'm going to go like 3.
30-plus points.
30-plus points. And what was the age range you said?
25 or below on the right side.
I'm going to say less. What'd you say, 5?
I said 3.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say probably 5.
There's 4. Brant Clark.
Sweet spot.
Moritz Seider. Noah Dobson, who the Blues were trying to acquire as of this time last week, and Evan Bouchard, who just got, I think, $10.5 million on a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
So that is why you trade for this, man. Because if you think that this player has the potential to be a 30-plus point player, and clearly they do, otherwise they don't make this move, and he's 21, 22 years old right now, well, yeah, I'm going to trade the 20-goal scorer to go acquire that guy when I have 6 other 20-plus goal scorers at the age of 25 or below that are playing right now on my wing, and I've got more coming through my pipeline. Like, you always make this deal. It is a bold move to make. I'm not telling you that it is without any kind of risk. It is a huge risk because you're acquiring a player that has almost zero NHL experience. But if you believe in your player evaluation here, and you think you're going to get it right, well, you just basically acquired Noah Dobson before Noah Dobson started making $9.5 million.
Yep.
I actually think you could make a pretty strong case, Alex. This is a better move than acquiring Dobson, given what it means for the rest of your roster.
Yeah.
It's less certainty, a lot less certainty, but that's what the money's for. That's what the $9.5 million is for. I'd rather buy low at the front end of a career than get it at the 25, 26-year-old age when you have to suddenly pay $9.5 million for Dobson. Again, it sounds like there's a little bit more grit here with this player.
Yeah, again, you paid for upside. The same reason, this is what Armstrong told us after the draft when we were talking about not having picks in the second and third round. He said, if you're telling me today that I'd trade a second-round pick for Philip Broberg and a third-round pick for Dylan Holloway, I'd say that was a steal if we'd made that move on draft day. You're essentially trading a first-round pick for a guy that's 22 years old. That was also a first-round pick. And I think I saw the report that said the Blues were interested in trading back into the first round in 2021 draft to draft Mailloux. Now, that same draft, they drafted Bolduc in 2000 or at a 17th overall. So, you know, this may be somebody that has always been on the Blues' radar. And it's just said, hey, we got to wait for the opportune moment to pounce on this. To me, I also wonder the trickle-down effect with this. Does this impact maybe moving a Justin Falk or a Nick Leddy? Do they move right-handed defensemen out of the system?
We're going to try to get our audio back on track. He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. We've got Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us today. We want to hear from you. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We've got the YouTube chat available for you, even if the video is not at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Coming up next, we can put an end to the Jordan Kyrou speculation. And how does this move change, if at all, what the Blues are planning
BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center for Blues Development Camp on 101 ESPN. Brought to you by E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Gotta tell you, this is the first. This is the first for me. I'm broadcasting live in my car. Alex Ferrario is broadcasting live in his car right now. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN.
Yeah, it's like a little, it's like a parade. BK is behind me, I'm in front of him, and you are going to have live road reaction with both of us. Jordan, have the dump button ready because I have road rage.
It's going to be great. So Alex and I are heading back to the studio right now. So if anything sounds a little dissimilar from what you're used to when you're listening to the radio, that's why. We apologize for any of the technical difficulties. All right, so the Blues make a big trade today. They have decided that they're going to send one of their surplus and forwards. They're sending Zach Bolduc, who's a good player, to Montreal, and in return, they're getting a 21, 22-year-old defenseman, shoots from the right side, 6'3", big shot, 200-plus pounds. They are getting back to their identity of having tree trunks on the blue line to add some of that size, add some more puck movement back there. Alex, for you, what does this change about their plans today? Because I went into today and I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, they have no need to even consider one of the wingers that are available. You are completely set at that position. Does that change now that Zach Bolduc has been removed from the mix?
Yeah, I think it does change. Now, do I think they're going to go after a guy like Nikolai Ehlers or Brock Besser? Probably not, because those guys are going to cost you $8+ million and commit 8 years to them. And I don't know if the Blues are ready to stomach that. I don't know if they're at the right life cycle of their team to bring that in. But I said yesterday, BK, that I would be upset if they go out there and sign Mikael Granlund. Now I have to change my tune, because the reason I didn't like the idea of Mikael Granlund for the Blues was because I don't think he's a centerman. I think he's a winger. And even if you try and play him at center this season, the moment Dvorsky is ready, they're going to shift Granlund to the wing. And where are you shifting him to the wing? Because you got Bolduc, Neighbors, Holloway, Snuggerud, Buchnevich, Kyrou. You got 9 wingers in 9 positions, and you're not playing Granlund $5 million to play him on the fourth line. But now you've got a hole, in my opinion, on that third-line wing. So if you go out there and sign Mikael Granlund, that means maybe Granlund's the centerman for you while Sundqvist plays the wing or Texier plays the wing. And then when Dvorsky is ready, you move a Granlund over to the wing. So now I'm at least willing to listen on the Granlund conversation if you go out there and pay him a contract. I think you now, at least versatility, look-wise at the wing position. Can you find somebody that provides a little bit more depth on the offense? I still think the goal is finding a centerman, though, because they've got wingers on their roster, Joseph and Texier. Sundqvist can play the wing. You know, if Dvorsky makes the club out of camp, then he can play the wing. Or maybe you're looking at some other guys in your minor league system. I don't think that's a necessity, but I do think it opens up the window for the Blues a little bit more of saying, like, hey, we can look at 2 guys that can play both positions and see which one benefits our team more.
Yeah, that to me is kind of the way that I view it. Is just Granlund has suddenly become not only like a good fit and maybe a necessary fit, because there were only really 2 centers that made sense on the market at this point for the Blues. If they were really going to get into the market of significance, you know, paying $4+ million for any of these centers that could be available, the only guys that really made sense in that regard were Suter and Granlund, and that's if you believe Granlund is a center. And I know we have our disagreements on that, but now you look at Granlund, not only does he make sense, he's almost the perfect fit for where the Blues are at right now, because for this upcoming season, while Dvorsky remains somebody that is going through his developmental curve, he can be your center on that third line. And then when Dvorsky's ready to go, you bump him out to the wing, and as he's playing center currently, you know, you've got that trio of guys that can fill in on the wing depending on the matchup, depending on where you're at, depending on who's playing well at any given time with Texier and Joseph and Sonny potentially. And then later on, hey, he becomes a really solid winger. I mean, I think this is something that maybe gets a little underrated with Granlund. This is a guy that was a top 6 winger on a Stanley Cup contender this year for the Dallas Stars. And they were trying like hell to retain his services this offseason. They just couldn't make it work money-wise. Like they're too far up against the cap to be able to bring him back. So I think he makes a ton of sense for the Blues right now, as long as they can go out there and meet his ask on the open market. And that's where things get interesting. You said earlier today, Alex, that just a little bit ago, one of your favorite centers just signed. What was the contract that he signed for?
So it was 1 year, $5.4 million for Christian Dvorak. The Flyers gave that to him, which here's the thing. I expected that 1 year deal to reset the market, and I think the reason he signed for so much was because Philly was desperate for a placeholder, and that's where the Blues aren't at. Like, I don't think they're desperate, and now it might be a little bit more desperate, but I know your reaction is that way, BK. Plan on it being about $5 to $5.5 million for Granlund with about 2 more years attached to it.
Sure,
because
I'm cool with paying $5 million. I'm cool with paying $5 million though for a guy that's going to, produce 45 to 50 points in a normal season for him. I'm not willing to do that for a guy that's going to produce 30 points for me. No, sirree. I'm good.
Well, I wasn't willing to do that for a guy that's going to be paid to be a 200-foot centerman that wasn't a 200-foot centerman. I would be more willing to give it to a guy who could play his role for 1 year and reset himself. And then, look, Christian Dvorak had to go out there and perform if he wanted to get another contract in the NHL, which I think those are always good opportunities. But now that this Bolduc thing has happened, I think the Granlund thing makes a lot of sense. I don't even think Granlund gets signed to be a centerman. I think if they sign Granlund's your winger with an Oscar Sundqvist, and as Sundqvist's season goes on, and if his body doesn't hold up like they expect it to be, well, now you could put Granlund at the center position. They do this where they like to have two. They do this where they like to have 2 centers on one line. They put Faksa and Sundqvist on lines together throughout the season. Mm-hmm. They had Faksa and Thomas on a line together at times in the season. So if one guy gets booted from the faceoff, they put another one there. So I could see them do that. Now, I think this is probably the move that makes the most sense for the Blues because it's versatility. Granlund is a bona fide 20 to 25 goal scorer in the NHL on the wing. He's a power play scorer as well. What he is not is he is not a 200-foot centerman. But if I have Sundqvist, let's say, for 50 games out of the year, now I can use that 50 of a defensive centerman with a goal scorer, and then the other 30-something games, I have my centerman with other options on the wing. So I think Granlund actually, it's wild how fast this goes, BK. Granlund actually makes the most sense now for the Blues.
All right, so let's look to the blue line real quick because we just talked about how this potentially changes things on the forward side. For your defensemen, you don't have too many players on the roster to go into an opening night situation, right? Like you're probably anticipating some kind of a move there. What do you think that looks like for the Blues as they now have added a 21-year-old defenseman that I have to imagine they're anticipating making their opening night roster?
Yeah, and not just their opening night roster. In my opinion, that's the guy that's playing on the right side with Philip Broberg. So what that means is Justin Falk gets moved to the third pair. Now, maybe they slow play this one because he is young and he's only played 7 NHL games. Maybe Mailloux is a third pair defenseman early on and Falk moves up to the second pair, and then as the season progresses, I don't think they move Falk out for this guy, but I do think you're moving Nick Leddy. Now, this is total tinfoil speculation by me, but you've got 8 defensemen now on your roster. And Kessel can't go through to the minors because he's got to go on waivers. And my guess is that guy's going to get claimed on waivers. So do you go with 8 defensemen total and only carry 12 forwards or 13 forwards, which would mean one of Joseph or Texier is going to the minors, or you're going to move one of them? I think there's a market for both Falk and Leddy. I think there's probably a better market for Nick Leddy because he can play both sides of the ice. He can play power play. He can play penalty kill. And he's got 1-year deal. So that would be my guess. And then Matt Kessel is your 7th defenseman. But I wonder if the Blues look at this and say, well, we like having the veteran as the 7th defenseman. We don't know what Mailloux is. So maybe they move a Matt Kessel in a smaller deal.
See, I was wondering if maybe that pushes them to move Justin Falk in a deal. And the reason being, I think Tyler Tucker is now your third pair defenseman on the right side. So your right side is basically set in that scenario that I just mentioned. And then maybe Leddy returns in a third pair kind of a role. He's at $4 million on an expiring deal. Moving Falk allows not only for flexibility this year, but also for next. And in this scenario, you've effectively replaced Falk with a 21-year-old. You replace Zach Bolduc by getting a little bit older, certainly with Granlund, but I think production-wise and how good you could be with those two players, Granlund plus going with this kid from Montreal, the Blues might be in a better place not only for right now, but for the future as well. This is a really interesting day for Doug Armstrong and the way that he's going to go about reconstructing this roster. Granlund, to me, makes all the sense in the world now, and then we'll see what they decide to do on the blue line. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're both broadcasting live from our cars as we're driving onto Olive Boulevard, getting back to the studio momentarily. Coming up here in just a little bit, we're going to be joined by Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. He joins us each Tuesday to break all things down St. Louis Blues related. In 15 minutes, we'll get some of your questions. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. We'll have the YouTube chat up and running once again here momentarily as well. Shout out to Jordan Deacon, who's done a fantastic job for us back in the studio as we've gone through some technical difficulties here on the road. Coming up next, we continue to talk about the Blues with our guy Jeremy Rutherford here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Blues are at development camp today at Centene Community Ice Center. Alex Ferrario and Brandon Kiley have made it back to the studio, so we've got JR next. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson's going to be here eventually. I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Jordan Deacon did a fantastic job for us, keeping us on the air. Whoo, boy, am I winded.
Yeah, I just broke the number one rule that Jack Buck used to say, never run to a microphone, and I just ran up like 3 flights of stairs. I am not in shape for this.
Ryder, when we were coming in, I feel bad about this. I was sprinting up the stairs, and then I walked in to act like everything was cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Nothing could possibly bother me. And he's like, I assumed you would be sprinting. I was just playing it cool.
I made you look worse than because I came running down the hallway with my book bag barely on my shoulders.
So we are back in the studio. If you guys want to check us out on YouTube, you can do so. YouTube.com/101ESPNSTL. I don't know what this says about us, Alex, but we apparently went up. We spiked in viewership when we were off of the camera.
That's not good.
So I don't know exactly what that says about our show, but here we are. Okay, we are going out to the Callier and Thompson hotline now to be joined by our friend, the Blues insider for The Athletic. He is Jeremy Rutherford, joining us on a big day for the St. Louis Blues. It's free agency day. He's very busy. The Blues just made a trade. JR, let's start out with the obvious. What was your reaction when you saw not only that the Blues had made a deal for a 21-year-old defenseman, but that they were sending Zach Bolduc in return?
Yeah, some surprise here, guys. And by the way, I'm not sprinting. I've been standing here for quite some time.
Smart man.
Getting ready to jump on with you guys. But some surprise because Zach Bolduc, as we all know, took a big step last year with his progress. 19 goals. He finished 8th in the Calder voting. You saw that shot, probably the hardest shot on the team in terms of getting it off, and was tied for the team lead with 7 power play goals. And so a lot of upside there with Zach Bolduc. And I think he answered some of the questions that people had about him. Could he be involved in the play if he didn't have the puck? And I think he showed some of that too. So some surprise that they're moving Zach Bolduc, but it's cliche. You have to give up something to get something, and I think that's the case here with Logan Mailloux. And you're talking about a player who was a top draft pick, a guy who had a ton of success last year in the American Hockey League. Guys, I'd forget the fact that he played just 8 games in the NHL in his career so far. He was one of the better blue liners in the American Hockey League last year. Lots of upside, and he's a right shot guy that the Blues would love to have in their system.
You know, Jay, the one thing that I kept questioning, and I know we talked about this on our show in the past and on the podcast, is are the Blues really focusing more on upgrading their defensemen rather than worrying about the center position? And this kind of solidifies that question. They were in on Dobson. They were in on Bo Byram, according to all of the reports. And then you make a move for a young right-handed defenseman. It feels like that was the area of stress by the Blues rather than the forward position.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, but I think you can have those two things kind of simultaneously going on. And I think with the defenseman, it's kind of player-specific. If Dobson's available, you go and get him. And obviously there wasn't as much known about Mailloux and was he available. And so I think when there's not as much talk about a player like that, obviously Doug Armstrong, his staff, they do their homework. They find out that he's available, and they want to take a shot on him. I don't think that they get down to defensemen 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on their list, and, it's a super high priority. I think these are a couple players that they identified, obviously Dobson being a established NHL player, and now they can bring in Mailloux. Meanwhile, they still need the center, so I don't think it should take a back seat in terms of their needs. Like, they can add the young defenseman from Montreal and put them in the system, but, it's not going to make them as competitive as they need to be up the middle next season. So whether it be here in free agency, whether it be the second wave, third wave, whether it be a trade, they still need to identify that second-line center.
Couple of signings have just taken place. Corey Perry has signed with the L.A. Kings. He is going to be heading to L.A., which means congratulations to the Kings on going to and losing the Stanley Cup in the upcoming season.
It's like an omen.
Also, a 7-year, less than $8 million deal for Brock Besser
really
to stay with the Vancouver Canucks. A pretty surprising AAV there, and a bit of a surprise in terms of him sticking in Vancouver, but that's the way that one goes. For the Blues, JR, you mentioned Blues still need to add a center somewhere in free agency. Mikael Granlund seems like the player that has been most discussed in that regard. We were just talking about this while we were in our cars in the last segment. He almost makes more sense for the Blues now because he has that versatility of playing center or on the wing. Is that still the name that you're circling that makes sense for the Blues, JR?
Yeah, I think so. And there's been some chatter today. A couple of the national NHL insiders, Elliot Friedman being one, mentioned Granlund in St. Louis. There's some talk there. I've been in contact with the camp and believe there's some interest. Here's the situation, though. The options are dwindling. Look, Granlund climbed into the top 5 on our trade board at the Athletic last night after all those moves were made yesterday, teams re-signing their own guys. What does that do? It drives the competition up for him, and it also potentially drives the price up, the term up, those types of things. So can the Blues stick in a negotiation in which there's more teams than maybe anticipated, and maybe that term is longer than you anticipated? Listen, I think he's a guy who could step in and fill their middle six need for sure. He can play on the wing, like you just said, but he's 33 years old, and so you don't want to get into a situation where you're giving him 4 or 5 years term if that's the going rate right now with the market today.
So, JR, go back to the defenseman. With Logan Mailloux being a part of this team now, do you believe that Falk and Leddy's name goes on the trade block for the Blues? Or could they just say, hey, we got 8 defensemen that we feel great with, and that's the 8 we're going to run it back with?
Yeah, I think definitely, and I think that's been the case all along in terms of if there was someone who was interested in, let's say a Leddy, now that his contract's down to the final year with that $4 million term, he could be a good, 6 guy for somebody. And you look at the situation, the Blues weren't sold on Matthew Kessel after they saw from him last year that he just didn't have that physicality to his game like he did in the past. So now you have a guy, in Mailloux that can come in, and I believe he's waiver exempt. So if he doesn't make the team, you can send him to the minors. You guys will have to double check on that, but that's what the word out of Montreal was.
Says.
Yeah, same thing. So it's a situation where they don't have to try to pass him through waivers if indeed he's not ready to make this team. But like I said, could be ready to make that step. Great year in the American Hockey League last year.
JR, final question for you. We're talking to Jeremy Rutherford here on 101 ESPN. You can find all of his work as he's covering free agency today over at The Athletic, and be following him on Twitter at JP Rutherford. The deadline came and went for the Blues last night to trade Jordan Kyrou prior to that no-trade clause taking effect. Is it your belief now that, hey, we can go ahead and put those stories to the side? Jordan Kyrou is going to be a member of the Blues in 2025.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, a lot of people, they look at the stories, they see his name in the headlines. I've gotten, obviously criticized for bringing it up a few times, but it was a real thing. I think in terms of that no-trade clause kicking in last night. But I don't think many are surprised that they didn't move him. We mentioned in all those articles, he's got 40-goal potential, and he's got an 8.125 cap hit for 6 more years. That's going to be attractive for the Blues in terms of being a team-friendly deal with this cap rising. So, nothing wrong with holding on to Jordan Kyrou. He made huge strides in his game last year. You can expect that to continue to be the case with Jordan Kyrou. And I know a lot of people, I've written it too, critical of maybe the grit, the intensity, what it takes to be a playoff player. All those things are questioned of a lot of skilled players. And, if he can put up the points and he can score the big goal and keep your team ahead, then all that kind of gets forgotten if you're producing. And I think that's what they're hoping from Jordan Kyrou in the future. So yeah, do they trade him? I don't think that was going to be the case unless Doug Armstrong was wowed by a deal, and he wasn't.
Jared, real quick, final one for me. If they return with this group, let's say Foxa gets re-signed, but this is the group they come back with, is it a better team?
I think that they have to get the center. Like, it's not a better team. Like, if I look at this roster and say, okay, they're asking me to put them, where do they finish? Like I, do every year. I think it's still in that wild card mix. I don't think that with this roster, without that help up the middle, you can say, okay, this is a top 3 team in the Central Division. I don't think they take that step unless there's a move made.
With Granlund, do you get there?
I think it gives you a better chance. Some things have to go right. You have to stay healthy. You have to get some production. But look, you got some young guys coming in like a Snuggerud who give you more potential for scoring and more offense. And, Jim Montgomery settled in for a year. Things like that. You play the system better, the way he wants it. So I think, yes, with a Granlund, I think you're sniffing closer to that third in the Central, but I don't think it's an automatic.
JR, appreciate the time, man. Get back to that tournament. Get back to working the phones as you find out what the St. Louis Blues are doing. We'll be paying attention over on The Athletic and certainly following you on Twitter as well, at JP Rutherford.
Sounds good, boys. Thanks.
Appreciate you. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate his time here on the show. Alex, as currently constructed, are the Blues a better team in your opinion today than they were at the end of last season?
No, they're not. They're a worse team. I don't know what Mailloux is. If Mailloux becomes a guy that can produce 40 to 50 points for you, then yeah, I can see this because you just contributed to what Bolduc's was.
Can I ask you a different way?
Sure.
Are they a better team than the team that we saw in the playoffs?
Ooh. Spinning the questions on me here.
Because the team that we saw in the playoffs took the President's Trophy team to a Game 7, and I don't know if you remember, but they were 2 seconds away from heading to the second round of the playoffs.
Remind me to punch you in your gullet after the show today.
And that team didn't have Dylan Holloway.
Yeah, I'd say they are. It sounds like Mailloux, and this is just me assuming, sounds like Mailloux is a play-driving defenseman. I don't know what he is defensively, but it sounds like he drives offense with the puck. What was their problem in the postseason? Couldn't drive any offense against the Winnipeg Jets. And Bolduc, I mean, as much as I like Bolduc was not the same player in the postseason. Like, he was not relevant in the
Ups and
playoffs.
downs.
You didn't have Holloway. If you take Bolduc out of there, you're telling me you're putting Texier in the lineup. Your offense isn't that great, but are you bringing in another top four defenseman who drives offense? So, yeah, I would say you're slightly better. I don't think you're night and day. I don't think you're winning that game against the Winnipeg Jets because I don't know what Mailloux is.
I think Holloway is better than Bolduc, and I think you've been improved defensively. I think it's really that simple.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think you were a better team today than you were in the playoffs, but I don't know what that team that played in the postseason, what that would look like over 82 games of a regular season.
I think it really comes down to what Mailloux is. Is Mailloux a guy that's reliable in his own end, or is he just an offensive defenseman?
He's Alex Ferrario. Tanner Hendrickson is here. We also have Jordan Deacon in studio with us today as well. We want to hear from you. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Coming up next, we'll get to some of your questions here on BK and Ferrario.
to win free tickets for Wiz Khalifa and Sean Paul right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions. BK and Ferrario may have the answers. Questions and answers presented by Vantage Credit Union. As a local financial partner, Vantage puts your needs first. Membership eligibility required.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, get them in over there right now or on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. All right, from the 618. Guys, is this trade still made in your opinion if the Blues don't draft Carbonneau? I'll say yeah.
Yeah, Carbonneau has no impact on what they just did. He's 4 years away. I think at least from hearing Tim Taylor talk yesterday with the assembled media after their first day of development camp, they seem to really believe Stenberg, Kaskamaki, Pekarchik, and Stancil are 4 guys that have taken massive steps from juniors or over in Europe to the AHL. All of them are playing in the AHL next year, and he said that's the next step for them to get a taste of the NHL.
From the 801, guys, do you still believe in Doug Armstrong's plan? Are people really there? Have we arrived there? Like, based on a trade of sending out a really nice, solid middle 6 forward winger that the Blues have 100 of right now for a potential top 4 defenseman? I still believe in Doug Armstrong's plan.
Let me ask everyone this, because Dom tweeted this out, which everyone knows how I feel about Dom, but I mean, I can't deny his salary projections. They're typically spot on. He said the market value for Zach Bolduc is $6.4 million.
Feels about right.
Bolduc scores 25 goals this year. Are you willing to pay him $6.5 million?
That's
on top of Holloway possibly getting closer to $8 million? These are the decisions you had to make.
That's a really interesting point, actually.
You got rid of a guy who, sure, he is a entry-level contract, but he was an RFA this year. And the market probably tells you that's somewhere between $5 and $6 million for what the cap is going to be. On top of Kyrou making 8 and Booch making 8, on top of Holloway potentially making 8, Jake Neighbors is making 4. Snuggerud RFA status is up the following year. I mean, you had to make a move in terms of this is very similar to the TJ Oshie one, where it's like, hey, we got a lot of wingers. At some point, we have to move somebody off of this roster. And you just got a guy who's further along in his entry-level deal, and he's played 7 games in the NHL. What do you think his first RFA contract is going to look like next year? Not $9 million.
You probably had to choose Neighbors, Holloway, Bolduc. One of them probably had to go.
I think it was a choice, because I think Neighbors is in his own market. I think it was Holloway, Snuggerud, and Bolduc. It was one of those 3.
Neighbors only has 1 year left after this year at 3.75, and then he's probably going to be in that $5 to $7 million range.
But I don't know if his market is the same as Bolduc's, because Bolduc is a goal scorer, like a sniper. Neighbors is a power forward, and I feel like the market's like snipers.
Maybe, but as an RFA, if I'm his agent, if I was making the case for Jake Neighbors, okay, my client scores 25 goals. Zach Bolduc scores 25 goals. They go about it differently, but they score 25 goals. And when we get to the playoffs, you know who you trust to score goals? My client.
Yeah.
So if you want to pay that dude $6 million, feel free to do so. But if you're not paying my client $6 million, you can go ahead and trade him, because somebody else would be happy to. So I think they were probably in a similar kind of a market. Now, Bolduc was more urgent. It's kind of like what we've talked about with the Cardinals, where some guys are coming up on contracts sooner than others. Bolduc was coming up on his contract this upcoming offseason. He probably could have signed a deal similar to Neighbors, where you're looking at 4-ish, but then you have the bridge deal, and then you have to worry about it afterwards. But yeah, eventually we're going to get into a spot where money gets a little bit tighter.
Regardless,
for your wingers.
Regardless, you were trading a winger. At some point, whether it was this year or next year, you were trading a winger. They tried to move Kyrou for a guy like a Dobson, who is already an established number 1 defenseman, however some believe him to be. Or you're trading a up-and-coming defenseman, and that's going to be a lower-level trade. You were trading a winger at some point, and Bolduc, unfortunately, was the casualty.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line from the 618. Guys, absolutely hate the trade. In my opinion, Army traded the wrong winger.
That's because you don't like Kyrou. I mean, let's be blunt about this.
Well, they didn't say that.
Let's be blunt about this. A lot of Blues fans do not like Jordan Kyrou and say get rid of him because he doesn't play physical. Guess what Bolduc did a lot this season? He hit people. So what they're upset about, and I apologize that this is getting Tony. I didn't realize I was going to take the pedestal of Jordan Kyrou's defense. But we're finally past the moment where we can stop talking about trading him. You wanted Kyrou gone because he doesn't play physical. Bolduc played physical, and you said, we want this guy. Kyrou is a 30-plus goal scorer and a 75-point producer. Does he want more? Sure, we all want more from him. But he's $8 million. Bolduc scores 30 goals. He's probably $9 million in a couple of years. You had to make a decision. You're upset because they traded Bolduc instead of Kyrou.
All right, we've had a number of people text this in, and it's something that I'll go ahead and do this. That way you guys don't have to worry about it. From the 314, guys, should we at least address the issues in Mailloux's past? Full disclosure, we got about 15 minutes of prep time prior to the show to be able to understand all of the complexities that were involved in his case. And so for me to come on here right now and act like some kind of like moral high ground or somebody that understands exactly what took place in his past, I would be doing you and myself a disservice by going about it that way. So the only way that I can really discuss this in any kind of a way that will make sense for me, for you, and hopefully for everybody else is go read about it. Go do yourself a favor and read whatever it is that you can find out there and go inform yourself on what his past is and what took place in, I believe it was Sweden, with Swedish officials, where he had to go through a case there. And you can come to your own determination on what you think about the case, how that impacts how you view him as a player, and you can come to your own decision on if you think that guys like this deserve a second chance or deserve to have an opportunity in the NHL. I'll leave that up to all of you guys. So, yes, I do think it is something that absolutely deserves some time. I don't know that me doing that right now, us doing that right now, is necessarily going to be a good reflection or a fair reflection of how any of us feel about it, because we just don't have enough context. I need more time for myself, at least, to be able to fully like wrap my arms around what exactly happened. That's just my personal thoughts.
I will say this because I don't want to dive deep into that, but I'll be very curious what Doug Armstrong has to say when he speaks to the media.
I can probably tell you. It's something that happened in his past. He is very sorry for it. He has answered for it, and we're going to move on. Yeah, it'll be something along those lines.
Look at what they've done. Now, this is very different than what these players have gone through or coaches, but they brought in Jim Montgomery, who got a second chance. Thomas Greiss, who got a second chance. Again, these are all very different cases, and I'm not saying they are the same one. But Doug Armstrong is going to be the one that answers for it because he made the trade for the player. And then you also look at how the locker room responds to that one. And I have to imagine they take that into consideration before they make a move like this.
It's also worth noting that I think he was 18 at the time. And I'm not excusing anything. I promise you I'm not excusing anything. But, man, for any of us, in our absolute worst possible moments, we've all screwed up in ways that are maybe not as clear as this one, but when you're 18 years old and you make stupid mistakes, and especially when they get as public as this one, it's not great. So the Blues have clearly made a decision that it's worth their time, worth their while to go out there and acquire this specific player. And now we see on the hockey side of things whether or not it works for them, because ultimately, for better or for worse, that's what this will be based on. For anybody that's in our listening audience right now, a lot of people will decide if this was a successful trade or not, whether or not he's a good player here on the ice. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson and Jordan Deacon, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we're going to play a game of Bet It or Forget It. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Have not talked any Cardinals today. Alex, I'm going to let you choose. Do you want to talk Cardinals next? Or do you want to continue talking about the NHL? Because I have a takeaway from free agency and what we've seen thus far that I do think is pretty interesting.
We don't want to hear that.
You probably should have asked somebody else, because I would much rather talk NHL than talk about a team that got shut out by another left-handed pitcher. Blues it is!
Coming up next, the market is not what I thought it was going to be, and we'll talk about that here on BK and Ferrario.
back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
I gotta say, this is not the market that I anticipated when Doug Armstrong said, hey, to get involved in these conversations, like, get uncomfortable, then add 20%, and now you're, like, to the place where you can be told no.
Because everybody re-signed.
Connor Brown just signed a deal with the Devils. It's a 4-year deal worth $3 million per season. We just saw the deal that I think maybe arguably the top player on the market in Brock Besser this offseason. He signed for 7 years, 7.5 per year. There were some reports, hey, it might take as much as $9 million to acquire Brock Besser via free agency. Alex, I'm not saying that these are like cheap deals or anything, but they're certainly not what I anticipated. Jake Allen signed a 5-year deal. It was $1.5 million per year, though, so they just added more years to bring down the AAV. Is this cheaper than what you anticipated for some of these top guys going off the market?
Cheaper in terms of AAV, absolutely, but I think you're seeing at what cost. You're seeing a lot guys sign long-term deals. Like Jake Allen, 5 years. This guy's going to be 40 years old at the end of his contract. Brad Marchand just signed a 6-year deal. He's going to be 43 at the end of it. Gavrikov, a 7-year deal. Besser, a 7-year deal, who's 28, 29 years old.
But the Gavrikov deal, that's pretty much what was in line with what the projections were. It was 7x7 was the projection. That's what he got.
And it's a defenseman, but I think that one also is a little bit of, because Gavrikov has been tied to the Rangers probably since free agency was starting to be open at the end of the playoffs. Well, there's no tampering in the NHL, Brandon. I don't know what you're talking about here.
It was just that good of a negotiation from his agent.
It's a good thing they're going to be investigating the Vegas Golden Knights for this.
Yeah. Oh, no, they're not going to do that. Toronto said,
they
signed a deal. You got Nick Waugh out of it. You don't need it.
That was totally legal.
I know. Yeah, what a trade, too. Nick Waugh for Mitch Marner. We're going to look back on that and be like, whoa, Nick Waugh must have been a Hall of Famer. No, it was tampering that was on the side of this. I think this is probably the uncomfortability Doug was talking about, and it's not in terms of AAV, it's in terms of years.
Well, you get to choose, right? Like, hey, you want to give out an extra year?
Yeah.
You're going to give out an extra $1 million.
You want Dvorak for 5.2 at 1, or do you want Jake Allen for 3 at 5 years?
Yeah, maybe we just need more evidence. Like Gavrikov, to me, that's the exact deal that I thought he was going to get. Besser was just short. It was cheaper than I thought.
Yeah.
7 years, 7.25 per. That's cheaper than I anticipated with him going to the market. I thought he was going to get more than that. So those are the two that have really informed what I'm talking about here. We'll see what happens with Granlund. Yeah. Granlund's going to be telling.
Granlund and
Suter's going to be telling on this because we've only seen one real, true, bona fide center go off the market. And he got more than I expected. Yep. With Dvorak, who is 40th on some of these lists of like the top free agents available. For the 40th overall player to get $5.5 million. I mean, that speaks to the lack of centers that are available.
Yeah, it also speaks to the desperation for certain teams as well. Like when you need a center, and Philadelphia needed a center, you're going to go out there and you're overpaid for it. I think this also speaks to how bad this market is. Like we always say the markets are bad once you hit free agency. This is the worst it's been in a long time.
Yeah, all of them signed right before.
Yeah, and it's because 3 of them were all Florida Panthers that won a Stanley Cup, and they wanted to stay there. Like, and Marner was already done, so there's no whining and dining for the top free agent available and waiting for the dominoes to fall. All of these guys go to the teams that they expected to, and then the market's like, cool. Now general manager's like, we're just going to wait until the player decides what he wants to do. There's no point in getting into bidding wars for some of these guys.
All right, so we talked about Granlund earlier today, how he fits into what the Blues could potentially be looking for since he can play center or on the wing now that Zach Bolduc is no longer a part of this here in St. Louis. Are there other players that now that we've had, an hour to kind of sit back, think about all of this, are there other players on the market, Alex, that you find to be interesting if the Blues strike out with Mikael Granlund? Is there somebody else that comes into focus for you?
I go back to the Bjugstad one. I think that's a low-end name that you could sign that falls into the category. Nico Sturm just signed for a pretty low deal with the Minnesota Wild.
I mean, what about wingers?
I was going to say, I'll bring up the one that I probably think it's a pipe dream, but it makes sense now. Do you go after Nikolai Ehlers?
I don't think so. I think if I'm looking for a winger, I'd probably be looking at third-line guys, but make the case for it.
Can I say that Jordan Kyrou and Jimmy Snuggerud can be second and third line guys, or Pavel Buchnevich becomes the second line guy for you and you move up a Nikolai Ehlers?
I don't want to be paying $8 million for a third line winger.
And that's the part that I feel like it's a pipe dream, because the Ehlers thing may have made more sense if you traded a Jordan Kyrou and thought you could get Ehlers. But the hard part with that is you're paying him north of $8 million on top of Kyrou, Buch, Dylan Holloway, and you just moved a winger out to save some money. So other than that, I don't really think a pure winger makes sense for this team. I think if you're going to get a winger, it's got to be either a top-end guy that makes it up playing with Robert Thomas, or You go get a versatile winger that can be a centerman. And frankly, there's not much out there.
That's kind of where I'm at, because I feel like a lot of these wingers that are out there are not all that dissimilar in terms of what you're anticipating from them production-wise to a Matthew Joseph or an Alexander Texier. I'd just rather run it back with those guys, see what they have to offer for you, and then hopefully instead pivot, go back to market and see if you can get something done with Radek Faksa.
Yeah, or you could go out there and get the hockey god and go get Adam Gaudette.
Oh,
We all remember him, right? The one that Bannister said is not an NHL player and then goes to Ottawa and scores 15 goals for him.
didn't have to throw Drew under the bus.
I'm sorry. I have been throwing Drew under the bus a lot lately.
Yeah,
Some of it deserved.
I hope he's okay. He's probably building picnic benches like he told us. He's big into woodwork.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. He told us that on the show that we did with. You weren't there. That was when it was T-Bone and I. That was when it was Ferrario and Friends. No, don't you dare. We have named the show Ferrario and Friends.
I don't think we have.
Everybody encompasses in Friends because I'm a friend to all. Jordan, Bradford, Grant, Tanner. BK is not.
Okay, back to the
BK
Blues. Mikael Granlund. Is it Mikael Granlund or bust at this point for the Blues?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I would be fine with a Bjugstad signing. I mean, I think that's a third-line center for you. And now you're shorter on the wing, but now you can use a Sundqvist on the wing, or you put a Texier over there.
That third line is not very good.
No, that's the problem. You don't have depth anymore. You don't have depth. You got to hope that Kyrou, Shen, and Holloway can continue what they did last year. Snuggerud becomes the wing. Buchnevich improves. Unless Texier becomes something that you were expecting when you made the trade for him, your third line is not as deep.
And that's why I think it is kind of a situation where it's Granlund or bust, or Granlund or Suter or bust. One of those two guys. And I personally, given the complexion of the roster now, with Dvorsky potentially being a year away, you're now trading out Zach Bolduc. I think Granlund makes more sense today than Pius Suter does, especially term is also playing a factor into this. Like Granlund might be a 3-year deal. Suter might be like a 5-year contract.
Anybody want to talk guy we brought up on Friday, Evgeny Kuznetsov?
No. So
cool. You don't want a playmaking, goal-scoring center? That's fine. Why would you?
Suter or Granlund would be the two guys that I think still make sense for the Blues, with Granlund being a very clear number one option for you. And I felt like Granlund made sense for this team beforehand. He makes even more sense now. I am fascinated to see what that market is, man.
I wonder if they're going to make another trade too, man. I wonder if one of these defensemen can bring you something in for a third line. I don't know much, but the trade value has got to be higher for a Falk than Leddy. If you believe Mailloux is going to be a top 4 player for you, it comes down to, because what we were talking about in our cars, I think Tyler Tucker's actually your left-handed defenseman, and then they use a right-handed defenseman, whether it's Leddy on his offhand or Justin Falk down on the third pair. I just wonder if when the defensive market settles, because Ekblad's not out there anymore, Gavrikov signed with the team that everybody expected, for teams that want to upgrade their defense, do one of those players warrant you a third-line center/winger that makes you deeper on that third line?
It could be. And I guess it really just depends on where do you want Tucker to play. He can play either side. Mm-hmm. Do you prefer him on the right? Do you prefer him on the left? Is there really a significant difference there? If you want to trade Leddy, because he does have that versatility that you're talking about, Alex, and maybe a team looks at it, 1 year, $4 million. Let's go ahead and grab that. That's cheaper than what we would get for a similar kind of a player on the market. Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. I don't know what you're getting for that, though. I don't know if you're realistically going to be able to acquire something of meaning for you. Like, are you getting somebody on the market that is better than Mikael Granlund by trading?
Absolutely not.
Are you getting somebody that is significantly better than, I don't know, Bjugstad?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I think you could get something of substance, not a consistent
start with
25.
Granlund, and then if you can't get that done, you pivot with.
Yeah. And I don't know, and the defenseman maybe doesn't get you a centerman. Maybe that gets you a winger that has some upside, and then you go out there and you sign a Bjugstad. Like, I think there's like 3 or 4 more moves that Doug's looking ahead for. It's like chess right now. He sees where checkmate's coming. It's just I got to wait for you to make a move before I can make my 3 moves.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube, as always, at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. More than 300 fine folks hanging out in the YouTube chat today. A lot of Blues conversation to be had over there. If you are somebody that would like to get involved, youtube.com/101ESPNSTL is the place to go to do so. Coming up in 15 minutes, we continue our conversation about the St. Louis Blues. They have learned the lesson from what is working for teams once they get into the playoffs. We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. Better to forget it coming up next here on BK and Ferrario.
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Vegas sets them up, and we're here to make the call. It's BK and Ferrario's Bet It or Forget It on 101 ESPN.
Presented by Circus Sports Illinois. Sports betting the way it should be.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. You can also do that on YouTube at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Alex, I'll get us started today. Bet it or forget it. The Blues will sign Mikael Granlund by the end of the day.
I'm going to say forget it because I don't think he signs today. I think he's probably looking at the market being like, cool, nobody else is out here. Time for Mikael to get wined and dined for 24 hours. I think he signs in the next couple of days. I don't know how many.
Top 3 free agent available right now.
Yeah, I think right now Suter, Granlund, and Fox are acting as if they're Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, and Nathan McKinnon on the free agent market because they're the best out there.
As they should.
I'm going to say forget this. I think they sign tomorrow.
I'm going to say bet it. I think Granlund will sign with the Blues, and I think it will be today. I think maybe he's still trying to leverage it a little bit, but I think he's going to sign by the end of the day. Most of the big names typically sign on day one. I expect he'll do that.
I can't believe Mikael Granlund is a big name this year, but he is. That's where we've arrived.
We always knew.
I'll say bet it because there's just too much buzz out there for me to not believe it. And typically when there's buzz around the Blues, there's a reason for it. I mean, there was buzz around the Blues with Montreal for a while. And guess what? There was something that happened there. It wasn't the deal that we anticipated, but it was a deal nonetheless. When the Blues had some buzz around Brandon Saad a few years ago, that came to fruition. I think the Mikael Granlund stuff is real, so I'll say bet it. Alex, what do you got for us?
Just a side tangent. You remember like 2 years ago where I was like, man, Zach Bolduc might become a major piece of trade for the Blues, and people were like, you're crazy, Alex.
Remember when I did that with Ivan Barbashev, and people were like, you're crazy, BK.
Sometimes it's
that's so stupid. Why do you hate Barbie? And
bet it or forget it. We're always right. You know, like all of us. Okay, bet it or forget it. Logan Mailloux scores more points on the power play than Zach Bolduc.
Forget it. That's too high of a bar to clear. I don't think he's going to be on your top.
I don't think so either. But I wonder if they put this guy on the power play.
I mean, maybe, but I don't think that he's going to score more than Bolduc did.
I don't know if Bolduc's on the top power play for Montreal.
Yeah, that shot, I'm just not betting against it.
Yeah, that was my thought process. I would not bet against Zach Bolduc's shot. I mean, in the cut we had when we returned, he started to find his sweet spot on the power play as the season went along, so I would forget it. I don't think you're going to see their new defenseman have more points.
Bet it. You guys are cowards.
Oh, wow.
So he gets 20 points on the power play this year.
I mean, when was the last time a defenseman at 21 years old had how many? 20 points on the power play? There's got to be like 5 of those in the last 5 years.
He might do it for the.
I don't know, nerd. Go look for it.
If you said Thunderbirds, I would say bet it. You know, I think there's a chance.
Oh, come on.
JR said he's got waiver exemption. Like, you know, maybe he's a Thunderbird this year. He's a little more
20
seasoning.
power play points for a 22-year-old defenseman.
Are you looking it up?
Look it up, nerd boy.
I will. Go ahead. T-Bone.
Guys, bet it or forget it. Doug Armstrong will make at least one more trade today.
Forget it today. If you were to say the rest of the offseason, I would say bet it. I think he makes another trade at some point. I just don't think it's today. I think you let the market kind of settle itself, see who misses out on guys that they've needed in terms of defensemen.
I totally agree with everything that Alex just said. Not today, but I do think you'll see another trade.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I wanted to push it a little bit in case there was maybe some of the market evolves later on tonight or later on this afternoon. But yeah, I agree. Typically, Army, when he makes trades, and especially if it's like the Leddy, Falk, if they're making that kind of a move, it's typically after the market has settled. I remember last year, and it's a little different than this year already, but last year it wasn't until day 2 before they started making some acquisitions, and it was on the trade market. So yeah, I would forget this as well.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. If you guys have any thing for bet it or forget it, go ahead and get those in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, bet it or forget it, Snuggie will outscore Bolduc in 2025.
Oh, I'll bet this. I mean, Bolduc's going to Montreal to be a middle 6 winger. Snuggerud is probably spotted in to play with Robert Thomas this year. So I'll bet this.
I would bet that as well. I think Snuggerud can be 25, 30 goal scorer this year. I think Bolduc will be right about where he was this year, about 20, so I would bet it.
You think Bolduc shot's good. Snuggerud shot's going to be even better.
Yeah.
Are we going to nerd out on that one, too?
Well, I'd like to know what a 22-year-old shot has thought of the NHL.
No, I think I would lean Snuggerud here. I think it's going to be really close, though. I think Bolduc's a good goal scorer, man. I don't want to underestimate how good that guy is with this shot. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line. Guys, better to forget it. Dvorsky will start with the team as a winger now.
I'm going to say forget it for now. It's going to come down to what he does at camp. Like, do I believe he could come into camp and blow everybody's socks off and force himself onto the roster? Yeah, because now there's an opening not just at the center spot if they don't make a move, but at the winger. But he has to be the best player at training camp, which is just hard to fathom. So I'll say forget it for now, but I could see it happening.
Yeah, I will forget it as well. I do kind of like that now that they have moved off of Zach Bolduc, and if they run it back with a Texier or Joseph on that third line wing, they have multiple options as the season goes along, right? Like maybe they say, you know what, maybe we should get Dvorsky some reps on the wing and learn alongside whoever the third line center is. So you've got that spot open on that roster. You can put him there. Or if he does develop and they sign Granlund and he develops sooner than they're expecting, boom, he can take the third line center. Granlund can shift out. I like the flexibility that they've created on the third line, but I would forget that
I'm
for
going to
now.
forget it as well. I have your answer, Alex.
On
the number of defensemen aged 22 or younger last year that had at least 20 power play points.
Well, I know the guy in Montreal did it, Lane Hudson.
Yeah, he's 5'9". He's a hobbit. Not 5'9", 165 pounds.
Sorry, Tanner, you are too.
Yeah, hey, us short guys got to stick together.
Yeah, short power.
There's one guy the size of the defenseman that the Blues just acquired that did this last year. His name is Jake Sanderson for Ottawa. He ended up having 57 points last year. He had 5 goals and 25 assists on the power play. So,
yeah, like 20 points is not crazy to think of.
Dude, there's 2 of them this age that did it last year.
That's fine. There's not a lot of defensemen that get power play time that do it in the NHL. This guy can produce points in the AHL. Why not give him the NHL?
You're insane. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Better to forget it. Ryan O'Reilly gets traded.
Forget it. Yeah. Apparently, Friedman said in one of his 32 Thoughts podcasts that like the new owner with Nashville is basically coming saying, yeah, you're going to be good this year. They ain't trading anybody away. If anything, they're trading 4 pieces.
Better to forget it. This trade just signaled that Dylan Holloway will be a Blue for a very long time, and the trade wouldn't have happened if Holloway wasn't here.
I would bet this one. Yeah, you don't make this move unless you believe you're set at the wing position. If you think Holloway is going to go to free agency in a couple of years, then you're not making this move. So, yeah, I would bet this.
Yeah, I'd bet it as well. I 100% agree with that. I think it came down to, I think you said it earlier, 2 of 3 guys you would want to keep of the group of Holloway, Kyrou, Neighbors, Bolduc, or 3 of the 4, I guess, you'd want to keep. And they chose Bolduc was the odd man out.
And I think part of this might be Montreal made the decision for them as well. Somebody earlier asked, like, why would you trade Bolduc over, like, an Alexander Texier?
Because Texier has no trade value?
Yeah, because one of those guys is really sought after on the market. And JR said this. It's totally true. If you want something out there, you've got to give something, man. The Montreal Canadiens are not just giving up a former first-round pick defenseman that's 6'3", 215 pounds, plays with aggression and physicality, and has the ability to move the puck. You don't give that guy up. Unless I'm getting something that I believe to be super valuable for my team, especially on a team that is lacking legit dudes that can put the puck in the back of the net. So if you're the Blues, that's what you had to give up to be able to get this kind of an asset.
You also look at the profile of the player. He's a fast, shot-first winger. Now, he brought some physicality to the play this year, but it's not like that's his MO. How many guys on this team are fast, shoot-first guys? Kyrou, Snuggerud, Holloway now, although Holloway's got a lot more two-way in his game. But then, and I know people don't pay a lot of attention to the AHL guys, but in their minor league system, they got about 5 of these guys that they believe are going to be NHL players.
Somebody on the YouTube chat, Hal, says, so why not give them Kyrou instead? Out of curiosity, if you were in Doug Armstrong's shoes and Montreal said, we'll make this move for either of these 2 players, we will either give you Mailloux for Jordan Kyrou, and you make it last night, or for Zach Bolduc. It's the same deal. It's straight up player for player either way. Would you in Doug Armstrong's shoes rather give up Zach Bolduc or Jordan Kyrou in that move?
Bolduc 10 out of 10 times.
100% with you.
Yeah. I'm not going to give up a guy that's a certainty over an uncertainty. And I know Bolduc is a certainty in a lot of people's eyes. He had 1 year. He had half of a season.
I agree.
If you were getting... Mailloux's not even in the Kyrou conversation. We talked about that yesterday. Like, we're talking Hudson, Reinbacher on top of a centerman. If you're getting multiple pieces, that's where I listen to the Kyrou, not straight up in the same deal that you just made.
Yeah, Kyrou gets you Dobson, which is a proven version of what we're talking about you potentially getting in this deal. Bolduc gets you the potential version of Noah Dobson, and that's because one of those guys is better than the other. He's a more proven player, and proven production is the hardest thing to come by in professional sports. It's incredibly difficult to find, and when you get it, you don't move it unless you're getting something of real value in return. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We've got Jordan Deacon on the ones and twos today here on BK and Ferrario. Coming up next, the Blues learned the lesson that is working in the NHL playoffs. What does that mean for their roster building moving forward? We'll talk about that next year on BK and Ferrario. It's time to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. You can check out their 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. They have one in O'Fallon, Missouri, another in O'Fallon, Illinois, a third in Sunset Hills, and that 4th location that I personally go to in Town and Country. You can check out what they have to offer for you, because unlocking your inner champion means something different than Alex unlocking his or me unlocking mine. For some, that means low testosterone issues that you've been dealing with. You've got the symptoms and you're thinking to yourself, man, I don't know if that's what I'm dealing with or not. They can check those levels for you, boost you up to that healthy range, that upper range of a normal level for adult men. Erectile dysfunction issues, they can help you out with that. Weight loss goals, they can help you meet them. Or they can tell you about their vitamin infusion programs, supplement shop, red light therapy programs, or cardiovascular testing. It's all available for you today at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today online at victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The St. Louis Blues are at Centene Community Ice Center today for the development camp, but they are making some trades and signings. They have acquired Logan Mailloux in exchange for Zach Bolduc to the Montreal Canadiens, and just now, Nick Bjugstad signed from free agency. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Some breaking news here on BK and Ferrario. The Blues have added center Nick Bjugstad, a 2-year deal worth $3.5 million in total, about a buck and a half per year, Alex. Nick Bjugstad last year was a fourth-line center for the Utah Hockey Club. He finished with 20 points in total, solid defensively, decent on the face-off dot, plays with a little bit of physicality. He's 6'5", 205 pounds, and most importantly, his nickname is Rotisserie Chicken.
Or Jughead. I like Jughead.
Oh, I like Jughead.
2 years ago, he played 75 games for Arizona and scored 22 goals and 45 points for Arizona 2 years ago. Alex, I think my first question here is, okay, I like the signing. Just flat out, like, I think this is a good signing. You had brought his name up roughly 7 minutes ago, and we had talked about him previously here on the show. It makes a lot of sense for the Blues. But my question is, for what? Because if this is to replace Radek Faksa on the fourth line, man, I absolutely love the move. Like, could not like it anymore. 1.75 is roughly the market that we thought, hey, I'm willing to go there for Radek Faksa. So cool with that. If this is your third line center, I am fine with it. It doesn't get my, like, whoo, let's go.
Ooh. Is that what noise you make? Is that what noise you make? Woo, let's go.
Where are you at on this move for the Blues, Alex?
What was the goal that we talked about this offseason? Upgrade over who?
I mean, I guess
upgrade over
Shen,
who, nerd?
Shen was my answer.
I don't think that was ever realistic.
Yeah,
upgrade
Shen was
over,
if you move Kyrou.
Upgrade over Oscar Sundqvist.
This is an upgrade over Oscar Sundqvist. I don't care if you're looking at last year or 2 years ago. It's an upgrade over Oscar Sundqvist. Now, he's still slower, but the centerman plays a certain role. You go north, you put the puck in, and you create space for your wingers. This is a guy that, in my opinion, if the roster was to just turn out, this is it. Radek Faksa, you're gone. This is it.
Bjugstad, still have $6 million in cap space, by the way.
There you go. Is that with the Krug LTIR?
That's with the Krug LTIR and everybody else as is currently constructed on the roster, like Justin Falk, Nick Leddy on the roster. They've got $6 million right now to spend.
Regardless if Faksa is back or if Faksa is not back, Bjugstad, in my opinion, is your third-line center. Now, if they go sign Mikael Granlund, then we can have conversation. Remember those reports of like, not a lot of noise around the Blues and Mikael Granlund? I've always told you, ladies and gentlemen, Bjugstad's the guy. Anyway, this to me is the upgrade over Sundqvist. Now, you're right in what we said in the break. Francis is right, what he said in the break. On a Stanley Cup contending team, this is a fourth-line player.
Correct.
You hope to upgrade over that. But who's in the system that they hope can be in the NHL at some point this season? Dvorsky. This is a placeholder. You got a 2-year deal for a guy that next year hopefully is your fourth-line center because Dvorsky is ready. This year, now I'm not using Sundqvist for 82 games to be a guy that plays 18 minutes. I got a guy who could do that and, oh, by the way, produce you 20 goals.
And he's got size. And I think this is one of the biggest lessons that the Blues have learned over the last couple of seasons. They underestimated the importance of size. They went very far into the, like, we are a speed-first team. They wanted puck movers defensively. They wanted quicker guys. I mean, it was all the way down to the way that they were drafting. You know, you look at some of the defensemen that were in their prospect pool, they went smaller. And a lot of them were, like, around that 5'11" to 6'1" range. Now suddenly they are getting bigger, whether that be the centers that are on the roster from top to bottom or guys that are playing defensively. Alex, your eyes just went bug-eyed.
Sorry, Darren Dreger just tweeted this out. Things are percolating around Sabres defenseman Bo Byram. Trade conversations are happening with Calgary, Vegas, LA, and St. Louis, still among teams interested.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing when I saw that Blues were attached in that report.
What's going on?
The Blues are overhauling this roster.
They're making sure that their defense, when they're ready to compete, is elite. I mean, however you feel about Bo Byram,
what do you think that would look like?
I have no idea. Bo Byram, to me, would be, we've got the guy that can take over for Cam Fowler when we don't re-sign him after this year.
Also hearing an offer sheet on Byram is being contemplated.
Blues are out on that one.
Oh, yeah, we don't have our
Blues
picks
are out on that one. Huh?
They do have their pick now.
They don't have their second for next year, which would make things
Do
complicated.
a first.
Oh.
In all seriousness, if you want them to not...
Yeah, but it's first and third, and I don't think you have your third either next year, do you?
Can't you do just a first? Am I wrong on that?
No, it's multiple firsts if you go to the first round pick. No, you got your third next year. Yeah, you could do your first and third next year. Oh, God, another draft where you got nothing.
Yeah, first and a third.
Doug enjoyed it so much this year.
$4.7 million is what you'd have to spend.
Yeah. God, if he goes back-to-back years of offer sheets. Doug Armstrong, ladies and gentlemen, just...
Would you give up a first and a third round pick for Bo Byram? Because I probably would. I don't love the idea of giving up like a Zach Bolduc for Bo Byram, but a first and a third round pick, given where your current state of things are in your system, I'd probably do that.
I think I would.
You'd go 2 straight years of basically not drafting.
Yeah, which, I mean, they've stated, like, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, we've got all of our assets in-house. It would make sense. Where is he playing, though?
See,
that's your third pair defenseman.
This to me tells me they're looking at moving Leddy or
they're trying to move Falk and Leddy.
One of them.
Yeah.
And if it's a Byram prefers to play on the right, from what I understand.
He had success last year playing with Dahlin. So you're still talking third pair, unless you believe Mailloux is a third pair guy that you just get to that point.
I think that would indicate Fowler's not extending.
Kind of. That's kind of my thought.
Because then in 2 years, your top 4 would be set with Parayko and
Mailloux.
Well, on the right side.
On the right side, Mailloux, and then it would be Broberg and Byram. And then if Fowler wants to stay here, you cheapen, you have a third pair defenseman that can run the power play. Like, again, I think the the goal of what Doug Armstrong seems to be doing here, and we asked this question last week, are they going right when everyone else is going left? They're saying when we're ready to compete, we think we've got the core in place of forwards. We've got the guys. When we're ready to compete, we want our defense to be elite.
So somebody earlier asked the question, are you guys still in on the Doug Armstrong plan?
You think that person's regretting that text?
And no, they probably just didn't. People are reactionary. I certainly understand.
Darren Dreger, an offer sheet is being contemplated for Byram. Don't know which team yet. This is so Doug Armstrong.
I said that.
It's a new report.
He just tweeted out again. Brandon.
God, you know what? Free agency brings out the worst in you.
No, that's just normal him.
You're right. God, I'm sweating.
That was literally the same tweet that I read.
No, I promise you, it was a new one that just popped up.
It's not. It is the last sentence of the tweet that says...
NHL rumor reports that he just put another one out there on TSN's Hot Stove Show.
Okay. So when somebody asked us earlier today, are you still in on the Doug Armstrong plan? We said, yeah, we're still in on it. Part of it is because of this. What we saw with what they did earlier by trading for a 22-year-old right-handed defenseman was basically the equivalent of signing Tyler Bozak. Yes, they signed Tyler Bozak in 2018, and then by the end of the night acquired Ryan O'Reilly. At the time, we were like, is this really their plan for a top 6 center? Because, man, I don't know about Tyler Bozak in that role. And then by the end of the day, you started to understand it, right? When Petro walked in free agency. Now, it obviously didn't work out the way that any of us had hoped, but it was like, oh, man, what are they going to do to fix this? And then they go out and they sign Torrey Krug, who was arguably the top defenseman available other than Alex Pietrangelo. So I say all that to say this. We have only seen a small piece of what Doug Armstrong is planning to do this offseason, which is why I go back to, I don't think Nick Bjugstad is your third-line center this year. I think they signed Nick Bjugstad. This is my assumption. This is purely a guess, purely speculation. I should mention that. I think he's your fourth-line center. I think they are overhauling this roster to be ready to go on opening night of being like, we're a pretty damn good team right now. And if that's the case, I think Bjugstad's playing on the fourth line.
Yeah, it comes down to if you're getting Granlund, and I don't know if they're going to get Granlund. I mean, I know everybody is saying, and I know Jeremy Rutherford said that, I have to imagine that this means no Radek Faksa. I'm not so certain on that yet. I could see that. I mean, Monty loved Radek Faksa, and Monty loves having a line that you could throw out there. I absolutely can see a Bjugstad at a third line center for you for this season, bringing Faksa back for your fourth line, and then the hope is as the season progresses, you move Bjugstad down or around, and then you have Dvorsky at that spot. Or Dvorsky starts as a winger for you and gets slowly moved into the centerman role, just like Robert Thomas did.
Could be. I don't think that they believe that he's ready.
No, I think this tells you that they're not that he's not ready, they're not going to rush it. If he comes into camp and like Robert Thomas did, looked like he deserved to be there, then I think you get to the point where like, hey, look, this guy deserves to be on our roster. But you're not going to force the issue with this training camp.
If you see Radek Faksa sign in the next 30 minutes or something elsewhere, does that change your opinion on this at all?
No. Not until I see Granlund signed elsewhere.
Okay. That's the one for me.
Because I think Sundqvist would be your fourth line center then.
Yeah. Granlund or Suter, right? Yeah. I think those are probably the two guys that I would circle. Like once those guys sign, then it is okay. Now because I agree with Alex. I think there's a chance to run Bjugstad out there as the third line center.
I think it's possible.
I'm not throwing it out there.
I don't think that right now would necessarily be the plan.
I agree. I would hope that that's not necessarily the plan because I just don't know if you really upgraded then, in my opinion. I'm open-minded to the Bjugstad signing as being the first of many more pieces maybe to be coming here for Doug Armstrong. But if the plan is Bjugstad your third line center, then I'm a little upset about the signing because I'd much rather have Granlund or a Suter that are there because to me he is Oscar Sundqvist, just slightly better.
Yeah, I think he's significantly better offensively.
I think he's a 20-goal scorer, and I don't think Sonny is anywhere. I mean, Sonny's not a 10-goal scorer right now, just in terms of where he's at. Now, maybe it's different with Monty.
How many points did Sonny finish with last year? 20?
Yeah.
Sonny is
same as Bjugstad.
Sonny is a consistent, well, the time on, he's a consistent right now, 20-point producer. Mm-hmm. Bjugstad has been a 50-point producer very recently.
Bjugstad goes to the front of the net.
In the last, 3 seasons. I guess he did that in Arizona. He also did that in Arizona. That Utah team last year was better. They were taking strides forward, and he got into the diminished role and got to the spot where Sundqvist was, which was about a 10-goal scorer, 20 points.
You also have to know that Arizona and Utah last season brought in more of their prospects that they put into a higher role. It's not that he downplayed. It's just they pushed into the fourth-line role.
What I'm saying is somebody has to score on the Arizona team 2 years ago, and it might have been Bjugstad was that guy.
And not only did he score, but he was a +11.
Yeah, but he's playing 18 minutes a night.
When he was on the ice. Yeah. They were outscoring the opposition on a pretty bad Arizona team when Nick Bjugstad was out there. Yeah, that's pretty important, man. That's meaningful. And then 2 years ago, did I just go full Canadian?
No, you went Canadian on us.
2 years ago, he had 17 goals. And then the year before that, he had 13 points in 55 games. The year before that, 17 points in 45 games. And then before that, he had 30 and 50. He's a consistent 40-ish point producer in the NHL. I really like the sign. I see almost zero downside to signing Nick Bjugstad for $1.7 million. Yeah. I don't see how you could possibly be down on this signing. It's just a matter of what does it mean in the complexion of your roster? I think that's really the question is, does this prevent you from doing anything else? The answer is no, because it's $1.7 million. If they want to go out there and sign Mikael Granlund, they still can. If they want to go out there and sign Pius Suter, they still can. That becomes their choice as to whether or not they do so. And we don't know what those guys are asking for right now, money-wise. So some of this could come down to Doug got on the phone with their agents, and their agents got a call from somebody else, and they said, hey, we'll give you 5 years, $5 million, Mikael Granlund. And Army said, are you kidding me? You're 35 years old. No, I'm not doing that. I would love to have you for a couple of years, but 5 years is insane. Maybe that's what's happening here. And Pius Suter's 7 years for me. 7 by 5 or I'm not signing. He's no, I'm not doing that. So I think there's a lot of context that's important. I can't be disappointed by this signing because I don't know what is still to follow.
Yeah. And that's where I am, to be clear. That's where I am. But
well, you said it's a disappointment.
I said it's a disappointment if he comes in as the third line center, right?
But there's context to that. No, I don't think that you can just say that flatly without the context of, hey, if this guy, could it be still a fine signing if you end up seeing, hey, there's a 7-year deal out there for Pius Suter, who I'm assuming you wouldn't sign that for him, and you would have to sign a 5-by-5 deal to bring in Granlund. You probably wouldn't want to do that deal either. So then you would also change your mind on this, I'm assuming. Is that unfair?
I I would view it as I just don't know if you upgraded at even the third line center spot, in my opinion.
What was the
still.
opportunity to do so?
I mean, I would still have done, like, if it's a 5-year deal for Granlund, yeah, it's a lot to swallow. I still would be in on that.
A 5-year deal for Mikael Granlund?
No.
Yeah, I think you got to upgrade the third line
You're
center
signing
spot.
him to age 40, T-Bone.
Yeah, well, he might retire then. I see how the Florida Panthers are doing it.
Yeah, with Brad Marchand,
I think you
who
have to
posts
upgrade the
30.
third line center spot.
You don't mean this.
And he's not an upgraded center. He's not a center.
You don't mean what you're saying right now.
Tone.
You need a
Tone.
I know, but you don't.
I still just think that you had to explore more. Like, even on the trade market, potentially, we'll see what's out there. I don't think Bjugstad's a third line center for you.
He might be the best that's available, though.
I think he's the third line center for you now.
They may come to terms with the fact that, like, hey, given where we're at with our roster, given where we're at with the Dvorsky, we're not going to just block this spot for 5 years. That makes no sense for us. It would be a, like, cutting your nose to spite your face for a 1-year move. And this team doesn't think it's a cup contender in 2025. So I'm not going to go all in the way that the Florida Panthers are on these long-term deals for a guy that I hope to be in that position for 1 season. That wouldn't make any sense for them. So if they come to that spot and it ends up that Bjugstad is your third-line center, man, so be it. Is he ideal? No. I would like them to upgrade this spot. I think the best case scenario is by the end of the day, they have somebody else that's playing third line center for them. I would love for that to be the case. But could they be a better team next year with Nick Bjugstad now here, upgrading defensively with a 22-year-old on the right side defensively, and now having a full season of Holloway and with Snuggerud? Yeah, I think you could absolutely be better. I think your third line should be better offensively now than it was at the end of last season.
I disagree with that. I don't think the third line's better currently constructed, no. But, like, depending on what they do,
Oscar
maybe.
Sundqvist and Alexander Texier, which was what it was at the end of last season?
Well, no, Bolduc was on it at the end of last season.
Yeah, Bolduc was on it, but you also didn't have one of those other guys,
Yeah,
so like
Bolduc
neighbors. No, they were playing in the top 6.
Oh, because of the Holloway injury.
Yeah.
But that was at the end of the season versus Holloway being, don't get your arms up in a fluster.
That's what I said, the end of the season.
Calm down over there. Yeah, you're assuming an injury. You guys going to be healthy for you.
No, I'm saying, like, what you have going into next season, I think could be every bit as good offensively as what you finished with your third line at the end of last year in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, but that's not what they wanted. That was an injury. Like, you could be screwed if you have another injury again this year. But on paper, it was Neighbors and Bolduc, which right now, yeah, I would agree. This is not a better third line.
Yeah.
Agreed. But you didn't have Snuggerud for most of the season either.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So most of the season, you did not have your ideal third line last year. You have a third line that looks very similar to what you are anticipating as of this exact moment.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
To what you're going into this season.
A majority of this season, it was Joseph or Texier with Sundqvist and with the Bolduc. Okay.
That was at the beginning of the season and also at the end of the season.
To be fair, Pavel Buchnevich was the center, too, for a majority of the season. But update from Chris Johnson, which I don't think you read this before yet, right, PK? You didn't read this one yet, Chris Johnson? Okay.
He'll tell you if you did.
I still want you to know that I did read that.
Yeah, we get it.
It was a different tweet. Feeling is a sweet spot on this falls at the $7 million mark on the scale. If deal comes in under that, the compensation would be a first and a third rounder for Byram.
Oh, God, $7 million?
Yeah. Well, and the danger in matching that is you would be walking Byram straight to UFA next summer while losing the ability to trade him. So
I can't condone that.
Well, I mean, if you're going to sign it, like if you offer Sheedham, he's not going to sign anything beyond 1 year at 4.7. Like, because that's the thing with the offer sheet. He's got to sign it. So if you're going to sign him, you offer Sheedham and say, we're locking you up for 7 years at $7 million. So nobody matches it. I mean, if he's a part of your future, like we talked about, $7 million is a steal because 2 years from now, that's a $9 million player.
Or he's bad. I don't know if he's good.
Could be.
I don't know if Bo Byram's a good player.
Could be.
I'm interested in him. I would like to buy low on him. $7 million by 7 years, that's not buying low anymore.
Well, I mean, that's just going to be the goal rate if you re-sign him, though.
Yeah, I'm good. Are you guys in on that?
I don't know. I haven't been sold. I'm not sure.
I don't think I would do that for Bo Byram.
I'm trying to decide.
I'm giving up a first and a third round pick and paying him $7 million for the next 7 years. No, I'm good. That is where I think I'm good, actually. That's exactly where I hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he produces. He's offense. He's bigger. Not big. Not like Mailloux big, but he's big.
I would trust Jim Montgomery to get the most out of him.
And I mean, Jim Montgomery prefers mobile defensemen that could play big and create offense. And you're bringing in a guy that is viewed as somebody who could produce top pair offense.
It's 2 firsts for him?
No, it'd be a first or
First and a
third.
third.
Okay.
Yeah, beyond 7. I
Our
think it's
YouTube
like
chat said 2 firsts.
No,
and a third.
I think that's like once you get to like 7.5, then you get 2 firsts.
As we know, Doug will go like right up to that line.
And $10 million, I think, is the 3 mil.
7.02 is where you get to a first, second, and third round pick. So they would probably go 7.19 would be the way.
Buffalo wouldn't match that because, again, then they have to walk it up to free agency if it's only a 1-year deal and you can't trade the guy.
Yeah. Man.
Sammy Blais signs in Montreal. They're just bringing all the French Canadians over to Montreal right now. Bolduc, Blais.
We got a couple of texts that say something to the effect of like, guys, you do realize that there's a salary cap that the Blues have to play within the parameters of. Absolutely. If they were making a deal like that, I have to imagine they'd be moving on from Justin Falk.
Yeah, you
don't have to move at least one of the defensemen and then
maybe both
salary.
You don't bring in Byram and Mailloux, which again, this is pure speculation. Drager is the one that said St. Louis was still tied to him. You don't bring in Byram and Mailloux unless you believe they're playing next year, which means 2 probably of Falk and Leddy are gone.
So T-Bone scale of 1 to 10, where are you at on this Bjugstad deal?
I'm indeterminate right now, but if he's the third line center, I'm at like a
Not
3.
a proper answer. Can't be indeterminate.
Oh, no, that's what like my whole
No,
point.
you can't be
BK's got no
indeterminate.
Tony and told me that you don't believe what you're saying. He sounds like my mom when she's like, "Oh, do you like this food?" I'm like, "No, I swear you did like this food." No, I don't, Mom.
You know what never happens on Ferrario and Friends? We don't yell at each other.
I know.
Like
I was
Ferrario
so
and
much
Friends,
happier on Friday.
Ferrario
So much
and
more
Friends,
happier.
people feel welcome there. Look, Jordan's cowering in the corner.
Happier is not a word. Second.
I know. I can't
Going back to
believe that.
17.
Unbelievable.
The tension in this room today, I literally can't even handle it. I
Getting
can't.
worse over time.
I can't do it.
Coming up next,
Jerk.
we'll get into the junk drawer here and be.
You're the junk drawer.
the picture. The real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The junk drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alex and T-Bone on BK. So T-Bone's getting ready to head out. He's going over to the Centene Community Ice Center. That's what I wanted to start with here in the junk drawer.
Out of here.
Have you ever been more happy to leave the studio than you are about to be right now?
Oh, no. I typically really enjoy my job, and I still enjoy what I've been doing today, talking Blues free agency. What I can't stand is the tone. And typically, like, I can pick up on your tone. I can deal with it. Oh, when I got the... You don't believe that. Oh, my God.
See, there's trigger words with him.
I know.
There's trigger words. It's that.
Dude, he even had a big trigger one yesterday in the office. I don't know if you picked up on it.
No, what was it?
He asked, like, hey, what'd you guys, like, biggest takeaway from the weekend on the Cardinals, right? And you said, well, you know, I was busy because you were, you know, working while he was in Louisville drinking bourbon. Yeah. You were working. Yeah. And you said, well, I didn't get to see much of the Cardinals.
So I don't appreciate that.
And you said, well, my biggest thing, but I didn't get to see a lot. And BK goes, okay, I'll go first. Oh, just jumped ahead.
I missed
jumped
that one.
ahead of the line.
I missed that one.
I'll go first.
That was essentially saying, cool, you're not prepared, so
Time
we'll
out.
move on here.
Time out.
No, we're not going to time out with you. You had tone the last whole segment.
I'll go ahead and give the context of this if you want to go there. Alex said I wasn't able to watch much of the games this weekend. Mm-hmm. More than fair. He was doing the broadcast on Friday, and I would imagine he probably had stuff going on with the family over the weekend.
On Sunday.
All cool. So after he said what he had to say, I said, all right, I'll go ahead and go first then.
It's still downplaying what I said, which is a little unnecessary.
Well, Alex said I don't have much.
But I did give my take, and then you said, okay, well, I'll go first because your take doesn't matter.
No, you said it's the offense, and I was like, all right, we can work with that. Here's what I've got.
Look, that's a trigger. For what it's worth is a trigger. When you say for what it's worth at the end of a sentence, oh, man. It sets me off.
My favorite part is how they just had a whole conversation acting like you weren't here.
Which is cool.
Do you remember when he said, and then he said, and then he said?
You should see it on the text line when he's not a part of the thread afterwards, Jordan. And then when he threw his arms up, oh, yeah, that one gets you going right there. I think we should play the butthurt game that the Riz Show plays.
What is that?
So basically, it's like they ask like intense questions of like who's the biggest a-hole on the team or on the show.
Oh, well, yeah.
And then somebody gets butthurt from it. I'd like to play it.
Well, it's not much of a game when one guy's winning.
When he gets picked the entire time.
I'm aware of that.
Touche.
I think I bring some good qualities to the table, and I think sometimes I can be a bit difficult to deal with, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. I understand it. I'm self-aware enough.
Yeah, sometimes signifies to me like 30, 40%, and you are way past
That's
sometimes.
Totally fair.
T-Bone, have fun, man.
All right, bye, guys.
Do you want to stay? I mean, I'd love to go talk to Army. I'd love to go talk to Army.
He's going to be doing the show from his car for the next hour.
I'm not the biggest fan of interviews. I'm going to this one.
I'd love to just ask Army some questions and you just hang out at Centene for the next 30 minutes. It's fine.
Coming up next, Alex and I are going to have a rational conversation about Nick Bjugstad here on PK and Ferrario.
back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario, and now Jordan Deacon. I'm Brandon Kiley. T-Bone is heading over to the Centene Community Ice Center, where Doug Armstrong is scheduled to speak to the media coming up here in a little more than 20 minutes. So we'll have full updates on that as T-Bone is able to provide them for us here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, I just wanted to go through to see, all right, where are we at right now? The Blues that were on the team last year that are, at least as of this moment, not expected to be back in 2025. Radek Faksa, who's still out there in free agency, so it's possible he returns, but as of right now, I would say it's probably relatively unlikely. Zach Bolduc, who has been traded to Montreal, and Ryan Suter, who last time we talked to Doug Armstrong, he said, hey, I had a conversation with Suits. He understands we're going in a different direction.
Yeah.
Guys that have now been added to the mix compared to what we saw from most of last season. If you think it's unfair of me doing this, it's cool. Snuggerud, most of last season was not a part of the Blues. In the postseason he was, but most of last year, no. Bjugstad, and now they've added a 22-year-old defenseman in Logan Mailloux. He is the defenseman that they got in that trade for Zach Bolduc. Alex, just that. Faksa for Bjugstad, Snuggerud for Bolduc, and Mailloux for Suter. Would you make those trades individually, and do you think that they upgrade those individual spots?
Yeah. All of those upgrade those individual spots. I think the Suter is a no-brainer because Mailloux, although he is an unknown, is a guy that has massive upside, top 4, top pair potential. Snuggerud for Bolduc. I know you're going certainty for uncertainty, but I think we all can agree Snuggerud looked like he wasn't out of place, and that was a guy that just came fresh off of college without zero body muscle on him from college in a playoff setting against the Winnipeg Jets, and he looked like he belonged. And then you're going Bjugstad over a Faksa. I think Faksa is still an important piece to the fourth line, but if you're telling me player for player who's better, Faksa is at best a 10 to 15 goal scorer. Bjugstad has shown the ability to be 20-plus goals. So I would say you're better on all three areas.
I think that's right. I think the Blues are better right now than they were for most of last year during the regular season if you're looking roster for roster. And I think that's what I was trying to get at. I didn't do it in a good way, and I do apologize to T-Bone for that. That's what I was trying to get at with T-Bone is like, man, I think it's a little unfair right now to just look at some of these moves individually and say they failed because they didn't upgrade enough at third-line center. This is what I think we've been talking a lot about over the last few weeks, Alex, is, man, it's not going to be easy for them to do that. There's just a lack of options on the market. I think there will probably be 20 teams at the end of free agency that say, we'd like to be better at center. Mm-hmm. And maybe the Blues end up being one of those 20 teams. It's totally possible. Maybe they don't get Suter. Maybe they don't get Granlund, and they look at their situation like, we'd like to be better there. They do have another out with Dvorsky. I don't know when he'll be ready or if he'll be ready this year, but that is a potential out that many other teams do not have available to them. And they just gave themselves a little bit of insurance with Nick Bjugstad, who at least can play the position at a reasonable level. So that's why I think it's a little difficult to say, like, man, you completely failed on that third line center spot by going with Bjugstad and not getting one of the other available options. We just don't know yet what that would have cost them.
Yeah, and you're going to find out once you see Granlund and Suter sign. Once those guys sign, you're going to have the real idea of how much money it was going to cost you to upgrade significantly at that center position, although I have my doubts about Granlund at the center position. The one thing I like about Bjugstad is, like, he is a defined center. Your average is 49% from the faceoff dot. You played that position your entire career, and you've produced in that position. It's not like he had one season where he scored 20 goals. He's done it twice. In two others, he had 19 goals and 17 goals. So he knows how to score. He knows how to produce because he's been a 40 or 35, 40-point producer. He fills the void of what you were needing, and that is a center. Now, if you lose Faksa, I do think your fourth line takes a step back. I don't know what Sundqvist looks like there, just like I didn't know what Sundqvist looked like on the third line. But to me, you are still adding something that plays into the role of what Doug Armstrong talked about, a 200-foot offensive player, 20-goal scorer. He's been a more positive than a negative in terms of being a part of teams, and he's really good on the faceoff dot and can play closer to 17 minutes a night for you.
Yeah, the other thing on this is they're just bigger. They're harder to play against now than they were at this time last year. And I think that's something that I think the Blues learned their lesson in that regard. I think they got too far away from that, and they became a little easier to play against. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was, former NHL general manager that joined the show and said, like, nobody's afraid to go up against the Blues. It was Craig Button. That's who did it. He said, nobody's afraid to play against the St. Louis Blues. You go up against Torrey Krug, are you afraid? No. You go up against Justin Falk, are you afraid? No. And maybe it's not like a physical punishment that you feel going up against the Blues right now defensively, but you can feel their size. They get up on you quick, man. Like whether that be Cam Fowler, Philip Broberg, Colton Parayko, now bringing in Mailloux, wherever he ends up fitting into their mix top 6-wise, or even just like, speaking of a Tyler Tucker, that is a lot more size than they have previously had defensively. And you look down the middle, forward group-wise, you're big again down the middle in that regard as well. Or at least tough on pucks with a guy like Robert Thomas or Braden Shen. So I think that's a big part of what they've really been focusing on over the last probably year or so.
Yeah, and that's just the part that I'm kind of like wondering still. Like, because if I look at it on paper, Bjugstad, in my opinion, is your third-line center, which means Neighbors and Texier are that wing. Now, you're right. Third line, I mean, they're not supposed to be as deep as most teams have it. Like, you're not supposed to have Brad Marchand on your third line. That's just the Florida Panthers.
Correct.
But they're annoying. That team, on top of not having Fox on your fourth line, you do have two lines that I wonder how they fit into the roles that Jim Montgomery wants. You don't have that shot mentality on the third line. Now, again, they could juggle up these lines, and Stuggerud could be on a third line for you. But you don't have that shot mentality on the third line. You don't have that identity on the fourth line. Can you still play the way that you did last year?
That's why I think Sonny on the fourth line makes more sense to me.
He plays closely similar to Foxa.
At least closer.
It's just a question of can he, because remember, fourth line plays different than the third line in terms of go out there and hit everything. Can you do that for 82 games?
Maybe not. And in those games, it might be a situation where you see Nathan Walker move over to the center position. And that you lack a lot of size there, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But there could be some opportunities where you're just, for health-related reasons, Sonny can't play the full 82, so maybe you get 60 out of him.
And Joseph moves to a wing and Walker takes a center.
Sure. Yeah. And you just make that work with those guys kind of filtering through things. But I think the roster as currently constructed makes a lot of sense. I just think the fifth starter for a Major League Baseball team always gets more unjust criticism than what is probably deserved. Because you look at it and you're like, man, I would really like to upgrade that spot. Yes, you and 28 other teams. There are a few that really like what they have with their fifth starter. Most of them do not. And I think that's the same thing with a third line winger. You look at your third of the third line wingers, and you're like, man, I would like to upgrade that spot. Yes, you and 20 other teams. Second line center. Yes, you and 20 other teams would love to upgrade at that spot. Can you live with it? Are you elite elsewhere to make up for the fact that you're a little light in certain areas? And for the Blues, as you look at their roster today, they're a little light at third line center, and they're a little light at third line winger. One more signing, one more move, I think can alleviate some of those concerns. But you look really good defensively right now. Love what they have in net. The top six looks pretty fantastic so far. If Bjugstad is on the fourth line, I love the look of the fourth line. You're one signing away right now. One move away, third line center or wing, for me feeling really good about the way that this roster is looking like, and potentially even a top 3 team in the Central Division heading into this upcoming season.
And I don't know if we have enough time for it on this side, so maybe we do it on the other side. But also, keep in context what Doug told us. The goal was not to become a contender this year. It's be closer to 6th place than 10th place. So try and improve 5% from where they were last year. And as much as we love Bolduc and loved the idea of having a deep 3 lines, you also look at where you were deficient. You weren't great defensively. Like, Justin Falk did not provide you offense. Nick Leddy, Ryan Suter, they were fine for you. But you wanted to upgrade. Now you've upgraded the area from an area of strength for you. Sure, it sucks to look at your third line now and think Texier's playing that spot. But 2 years from now or next year, when Dvorsky's ready, playing the center, and you move somebody, or maybe Dvorsky's on the wing, or 2 years from now, if Stenberg becomes the first-round pick they anticipate, or if a Pekarczyk becomes it, like, they've got a lot of goal-scoring wingers that can be 15 to 20 goal scorers on a third line. They don't have a lot of right-handed defensemen. Juracek is the only other guy they got in their system, and the guy played like 20 games this past year. Like, you're talking 4+ years before you see him here. Now, your defense for the next 5 years, which is what Parayko's contract, is Parayko, Mailloux, I'm assuming he's going to be here long-term, Philip Broberg. Like, that is what you want if you're a team, and hope that you continue to develop other areas.
Jordan, how are you feeling today? You're the biggest Blues fan that I know. How are you feeling about where the Blues are at? They very well may not be done, but Doug Armstrong's going to talk to the media here in about 15 minutes or so. Typically, that's kind of a pause in what we're expecting to see. How are you feeling as a Blues fan right now compared to how you hoped you would feel coming into today?
I'm definitely conflicted. There's two sides of me because Alex brought up the Oshie trade from a long time ago, and Oshie was my guy, and that was such a sad time for me. I kind of feel that way about Bolduc today. Definitely not the same relationship that I loved Oshie with, but I don't know. I'm sad to see him go, but I'm not mad at the return, and I feel like all of the steps that we've taken today, that Doug has taken, and like you said, he might not be done, it's all in the right direction, I think.
That's kind of how I feel. It feels like you're trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
And if you can get there within the next couple of seasons, that's always been the goal for them.
You want to know where the North Star is as a team. Any professional team, what's the North Star? It's getting to a championship. How do you measure that? You look at other teams that have won the championship, or how you've won the championship in the past. And also look at how the coach has had success. Jim Montgomery has always been, defense is my strong suit. Like Dallas, they had Heiskanen and Lindell and Alexiak. They had a ton of guys, and they produced. And then in Boston, they made the move for Hampus Lindholm on top of Carlo and McAvoy. Like, that's been the guiding path for a Jim Montgomery team. And now you look at it and you say, we got our top four. Nobody is smaller than 6'3". Our centers, you've got Thomas, Shen, who's big, Bjugstad, who's big, whether it's Sundqvist or Foxa, who's big. We've got size back, and that's how teams seem to win.
Or if you go with, if they signed Granlund today, let's get to this on the other side. If the Blues were to sign Granlund at some point in the next, 12 hours or whatever, do you think he would be a winger or a center for this team? We'll talk about that coming up on the other side here at BK and Ferrario.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Jordan Deacon, I'm Brandon Kiley. T-Bone is out at the Centene Community Ice Center for us today. He's going to be hearing from Doug Armstrong here in just about 10 minutes. Army is expected to talk to the media about the big moves today. One, signing Nick Bjugstad, the center, 32, 33 years old, formerly with Arizona/Utah. He was a 20-goal scorer a couple of seasons ago. He has signed with the St. Louis Blues on a 2-year deal worth $1.7 million per season. They also made a trade earlier today, and that is the bigger storyline probably for Blues fans. Zach Bolduc has been sent, if you have not heard yet, to the Montreal Canadiens, and in return, the Blues get 22-year-old right-handed former first-round pick defenseman Logan Mailloux. He has not spent much time at the NHL level just yet, but he's a guy that has huge upside, big-time shot, offensive-minded defenseman, also has some size at 6'3", about 215 pounds. Logan Mailloux, the newest member of the St. Louis Blues defensive corps. Alex, I asked you this question heading into the break. I'm really curious your thoughts. We've talked a lot about what the Blues could do still to upgrade at center and potentially push Bjugstad down to that fourth line. If the Blues signed Mikael Granlund, given what we just talked about with the size that they have at the center position, how important defense is for this team under Jim Montgomery, do you think Mikael Granlund would be a center or a winger on this team now that they have traded Zach Bolduc?
Follow-up question first. Do we believe no Radek Faksa?
Yeah, in this
Granlund,
scenario,
no
let's
Faksa.
assume no Faksa.
Granlund's your winger. And even in the answer of Faksa, I think it was still Granlund's your winger. I was just curious. Granlund's your winger. Because to me, this would mean Oscar Sundqvist moves down to your fourth line, and you use Granlund, kind of what we talked about when we were driving back to the studio here. You've got two centers on one line. If Bjugstad gets kicked out of a faceoff dot, well, then Granlund can take the faceoff dot for you. But more importantly, you have a shot-first player on the wing with a big body of Jake Neighbors and a bigger body of Nick Bjugstad. Sundqvist plays very similar to Radek Faksa. He can be in your fourth line. I think Granlund's it, because I don't believe they would push, say, Bjugstad down to a fourth line and then play Sundqvist on the third line wing. Like, you tell me what sounds better to you. Neighbors, Bjugstad, Granlund, and then your WTF line with no F and the S, and it's Oscar Sundqvist, which, by the way, WTS also works, ladies and gentlemen. Figure that one out yourself. Or would it be Neighbors, Bjugstad, or Neighbors, Granlund, Sundqvist, Bjugstad, Walker, Toropchenko? Like, to me, that third line still is not impressive. It's slow with Sundqvist and Neighbors.
Sonny. I think it would be Texier in that spot.
But then who's coming? Sonny's not playing. And see, I don't think they would do that. I think they view Sundqvist as a integral piece of this roster.
Yeah,
maybe over a Texier.
I agree. I think you take the experience from Sonny, and even if he can't do the full season because of those legs, like I personally choose him over
And
Texier.
it could be we kind of see how this works. We'll rotate them in and out. Like, one of them gets a little bit of a run here. Could be similar to what we've seen with the Cardinals, where, hey, at first it was Burleson, and then Gorman got that opportunity, and then it went back to Burleson. So could go either way. The reason I asked the question is just because, like, if we think Granlund is a winger no matter what, maybe it doesn't make sense to sign Granlund.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's really like a Pius Suter or bust kind of scenario.
If you feel like, I don't know, part of me feels like you need another winger who can score. Like, that's kind of my gut right now. Like, I feel like you're good at center for now. Would you like to upgrade? Yeah, but I think the upgrade is Dvorsky in their eyes. I
think he would be a center.
Granlund?
For now. I don't think that is necessarily the long-term view of him. But if you signed Granlund, I think they would do so with the intent of, game one, he is our third-line center. Bjugstad's our fourth-line center. And I do think they would probably have Texier on that third line, and you would view it as, like, our physicality on that line is Jake Neighbors. We've got somebody that drives offense with Granlund, and then we have another shot with Texier. And then if you decide, hey, we need a little more size here, Sonny goes in as well. But that's my personal viewpoint.
And the only concern with that would be your penalty kill takes a massive hit now. Now, because if I take Sundqvist out, Bjugstad's not a penalty killer.
Granlund can do it, no?
I don't think you'd think he did it with Arizona 2 years ago, but last year he didn't do it with Utah. But Granlund is not a penalty killer, should not be a penalty killer, I should probably say with that one, and nor is Texier. So now that's 3 guys. Now, you still have Torpchenko and Walker and Neighbors and Holloway and Thomas.
I think
and
you might
Booch.
just see some of your top players get more time there.
Maybe. And that's something that Montgomery preferred. Bannister didn't do that, and we saw the struggles with that early on in the season. I think it's a possibility there. I just think the way that Granlund played with Dallas was a guy that created offense on the wing, but also could score with his shot.
For sure.
And if I've got Bjugstad, who's a big body, which NHL Edge, go look at NHL Edge last year with Arizona. Look where he scored his 22 goals. I think it was 18 of them were scored right in front of the net. So, I think that is the Sundqvist. Neighbors has got a role as well. Maybe Bjugstad plays a little bit of that. I just think you need a shot on that wing.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know how they would view that. And it makes me wonder, maybe they don't view Granlund as the greatest fit on that kind of a scenario. If they wanted to add a winger now, Alex, is there anybody else, if they didn't go the...
I have to look at this now because we've spent so much time on the centers that it's like you see the wing and it's like, yeah, they don't need any of this. Go on with what you're asking.
If they decided, you know what, if Granlund is here, maybe he is more of a winger for us now. Let's look at the other options. Are there any wingers that you think would make sense in that regard? Is Jonathan Drouin somebody that you would have any interest in?
No, I don't think so. Jonathan Drouin had some success in Colorado, but it was playing with Nathan McKinnon, and I don't think you're going to have any success on the wing with a Bjugstad, Sundqvist, whomever is playing there.
Could I interest you in an Andrew Mangiapane?
Some meatballs, eh? Yes, you can interest me in that. Now, I think you might overpay for something like that, but you can absolutely interest me in that. Keep going down this
28
list.
years old, 15-goal scorer pretty consistently for him.
He was good in Calgary there for a little bit, too.
Yeah, I think that was the Calgary bump that everybody
Matthew
got.
Tkachuk bump. Let me see who else is on this list.
Dadanov, he's like 100 years old.
Yeah, don't do that one. I think
Gustav Nyquist. It gets real thin real quick. Beauvillier. It's a whole lot of
all these guys are 10-goal scorers. I'd rather play Texier in that spot over any of those guys.
Okay.
I think I would go Granlund. I don't even know if Suter's on my desire list anymore. I think you're fine at the center spot. I don't think Suter's that much of an upgrade over what Bjugstad can be.
I don't think I'm interested in Suter at the deal he's going to command.
Yeah, that's fair.
If Suter was going to be on a 2 to 3 year contract, I would be all over that right now at 29 years old. There's no chance that's what he's going to get.
Yeah.
He's the top true center available right now. Because Granlund is a tweener, can play center,
I'm into that.
Probably better on the wing, and he's 33 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a guy that can be in your middle six center for the next 5 years, Pius Suter is probably the only player currently on the market that can fit into that criteria. Mm-hmm. So for the Blues, they don't necessarily need that. They need a stopgap. I don't know that he makes a lot of sense at the contract that he's likely.
Man, I know it's, again, this is a pipe dream, but the Ehlers things makes more sense than anything. You'd have to move out Falk.
I don't think it makes sense to me. Can I sell you on it?
Can I sell you on it?
Go ahead and give me your hard sell first, and then I will give you why.
He's a top-line winger. This is a guy that can play both sides of the ice. He's a penalty killer on top of being a power play. Mm-hmm. He's a hell of a shot for you, a power play shot for you. And he's the top-line winger that you have been wanting the Blues to get to play with Robert Thomas. And he's here for the long term. So now your forward group is set. Now, this is all $8 million, which I don't know if he's gonna probably be more than that.
I like the player. I would be interested in signing him if my team didn't already have Kyrou at $8 million, Booch at $8 million, Shin at $6.5 million, Holloway probably next year starting at $7-8 million, Broberg at $8 million, Parayko at $6.5 million.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think the money would work for any of those.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a money consideration, again, there's a lot of players. Somebody asked us earlier today about another guy. Would you be interested in X, Y, or Z? Yes, I'm interested in so many players that are out there. It's the context of your current roster that you have to take into account. For the Blues, if you go sign one of those players, like Nikolai Ehlers, and honestly, he's kind of the only one that's still out there on the market that fits into this criteria, it makes things really difficult with the players that are currently on your roster.
But what if you moved Falk? What if you could move Falk? Because now we're talking 3 guys that make $8 million, which, again, this is all barring Ehlers is willing to go 8.5 or something.
It would be 5 $8 million players on your roster. Because you've got Kyrou, Thomas, Booch, probably Holloway, and now you're adding...
Sorry, I meant the guys that don't have $8 million yet become $8 million players. So Holloway, Broberg, Ehlers, those 3 are making $8 million because the salary cap for next year according to Puckpedia, you get $37 million.
Can you have 6 players making $8 million on your roster?
If you don't have anybody making $10 million, I think you can. It's a pack mentality. I mean, how many guys are going to be making $8 million on Florida?
What's Snuggerud going to get 2 years from now?
I mean, that's the question, yeah, but is Snuggerud
what's Jake Neighbors going to get 2 years from now?
I mean, Jake Neighbors is probably...
You put yourself into some
but 2 years from now,
tight circumstances.
2 years from now, you've got $75 million in cap space.
Currently, but that is not taking into account what you'd have here with Ehlers. That's $8 million. Holloway, that's $16 million. Broberg, that's $24 million.
Still at 51.
Let's say it's Jimmy Snuggerud's getting 6. That's
35.
Yeah, it gets eaten up real quick.
It does.
And you have not filled out your roster because you don't have a spot for just a player to take Justin Falk's spot, Nick Leddy's spot, Cam Fowler's spot, Tyler Tucker's spot. Mailloux, maybe he's a player now. He's making $4 million. Like it gets tight.
I mean, it goes quick.
You don't have a goaltender on the roster.
Well, but yeah, I mean, it gets tight quick. I don't know, man. Like, if you want to go get a wing, that's the only winger that's out there right now. And it just comes down to, like, Ehlers just is a part of the core moving forward, which, again, I understand it's a lot of cap, but I think I'm just thinking in pipe dream world right now.
Yeah, I would love to add Nikolai Ehlers. He has serious injury questions, and I don't think it makes sense given the context of your team right now. And he's 29 years old. He's about to be 30 years old. So all of those different things, again, love the player. Think he's a really good player. I don't know that he's the specific player that the Blues I would be looking to add. I would also add this. Next year, if you wanted to go back to the market,
Connor McDavid,
and you wanted to go sign somebody, this probably takes you out of that. You just really severely lack any kind of flexibility in the future if you go.
By the way, we're feeling great about where the Blues are at. Like, imagine being Detroit right now, who their free agent signing is James Van Riemsdyk.
What are they doing? Can we take a hard right turn real quick?
That's the
What is
plan.
Detroit doing?
No idea, man. No idea. Grasping at straws, trying to keep their head above water from drowning. They re-signed Patrick Kane. Cool, you needed to do that. You trade away Vladimir Tarasenko. Makes sense. You haven't added anything to your roster. Like, this is why what the Florida Panthers have done is basically telling the Eastern Conference nobody's unseating us. Because nobody's got a competitive roster enough to do something like that. And I think
Florida just did, by the way, this offseason, this was Kevin Durant going to Golden State. This was the moment where everybody that might have been like, I love what they're doing, they turned. Unless you're a Florida Panthers fan, they're the villains of the NHL now. That just happened overnight yesterday.
Yeah, they'll be the most hated team going into next season. And I think that's what they want.
Close tie with the Knights, but...
You think?
Yeah.
You think
Twitter
the Knights
world?
Oh, yeah, I hate the
X,
Knights.
Twitter,
Really?
whatever. Yeah, they are not lovers.
Okay. Yeah.
So I would agree that Florida's probably number one enemy, but I think it's very close.
Yeah, which, no coincidence, might be 2 teams in the Western Conference or in the Stanley Cup final next year.
100%. The Florida Panthers are the most hated NHL team since blank.
Detroit Red Wings.
That's good for the league.
Yeah. And I mean,
for better or for worse.
That hasn't happened. And I mean, Boston could be up there as well. People despised Boston because they just kept winning, but they never really won Stanley Cups. Detroit just kept winning Stanley Cups and kept finding dudes in the 7th round. They did it differently. They were drafting guys and finding people, where Florida's making trades and keeping guys in-house. But, yeah, I would say a roster of just full of hated people.
All right, coming up next, we're going to give you a rundown on what exactly has taken place. We've spent almost the entirety of today's show on the Blues and what's happened for them in NHL free agency. Let's go ahead and expand the lens a little bit, talk about what's happened elsewhere in free agency today. We'll do that next here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Classic Air Care. Continues to be sweltering out there, which means that HVAC system, oh boy, if it goes out, you are in for trouble. Not if you're using Classic Air Care, because they are able to help you in a snap, especially if you're a part of the maintenance program. And I tell all of my family and friends, that's why I'm telling you right now, get a part of the maintenance agreement. What this is, twice a year, the springtime, the fall, they come out, they check the unit, they clean the unit, they make sure that everything is working up to snuff so that when the heat comes or the freezing cold comes, that HVAC system is going to work for you. But here's the kicker. If something happens between each visit in the year, you get priority scheduling with Classic Air Care because you're a part of the maintenance agreement. It's why I love using them. I've had it numerous times where something's gone out. I call them the next day. Within 24 hours, I get a response, and they're out there to fix whatever issue I have. Call them today. Schedule online to get them out for the maintenance agreement. They also have financing options. If you're looking to purchase a new HVAC system, just do me a favor and tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. That's Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals lost to the Pirates last night by a score of 7-0. Those two teams are back in action tonight. First pitch is at 5:40. As for the Blues, it's been a busy day. They acquired defenseman Logan Mailloux today in a trade from Montreal in exchange for Zach Bolduc, and they also signed centerman Nick Bjugstad from free agency. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alex, who would you rather have, Cody Ceci or Nick Leddy?
Oh, Nick Leddy.
Cody Ceci just signed a 4-year deal worth $4.5 million per year with the LA Kings.
Yeah. Cody Ceci is a fine player. Cody Ceci is not a $4.5 million player. Now, he's young. He's 31 years old. Cody Ceci is not a $4.5 million. Cody Ceci is a third-pair defenseman on a really good team.
The reason I ask that is because Nick Leddy has value in a trade. Yep. I don't know what exactly that value is. It's certainly not like first-round pick or anything crazy like that. But Nick Leddy is a really solid third-pair defenseman at 34 years old on a one-year deal worth $4 million right now. So if the Blues want to move him, man, this market for defensemen is shaking up in a way that I think they're going to definitely find a suitor for him. Yeah. Whoever ends up missing out or just doesn't want to play in those waters, the Blues are going to have a couple of defensemen that are potentially available. Yeah, and that's why we're speculating, do they make a trade with Logan Mailloux now on the roster? Do they move a Falk or Leddy? Now is the time where you let the dust settle. You let day one, day two settle a free agency, and the teams that say, man, we couldn't get Gavrikov, or we couldn't get Nick Perbix, or who was the other one that signed earlier today? Why am I blanking on the other defenseman that signed? Regardless, it doesn't matter. When those guys sign, teams are like, you got to be kidding me. Now what are we going to do on defense? And then you call, like, hey, let's go back to the drawing board. What do you want for a trade? Like, that's where the Blues are like, hey, we've got 8 defensemen that could play in the NHL. You want one? Come get one. All right, let's go through some of the signings that have taken place elsewhere. It's been a relatively quiet day, all things considered, for the rest of the league. The Blues have actually been one of the more active teams. Thank you, Doug Armstrong. And we thought that would be the opposite. We all thought, it would be probably quiet July 1st, and then maybe as you get further along, the Blues will be of interest. But they've done some stuff elsewhere around the league. It's just been okay. Alex, Corey Perry signed, so congratulations to the LA Kings. Looking forward to it. Also acquired Cody Ceci. 1 year, $3.5 million deal. Corey Perry will be playing for the LA Kings. I really like the signing. I would have been happy with wherever Corey Perry signed. I had heard a lot about Dallas potentially reacquiring him. $3.5 million. It's a good signing. Yeah, it's a great signing. I'm a little surprised he didn't stay in Edmonton. I thought he would have stayed there for cheap because you got the best shot to get back to a Stanley Cup final with McDavid and Draisaitl. But Kings make sense. I thought the Stars made sense. I actually thought the Golden Knights made some sense for him as well. League minimum and just be a third or fourth line player. But it's a good move by the Kings to bring him in. The reason that the Kings had to go out there and get a defenseman is because Gavrikov is playing for the New York Rangers now. 7 years, $7 million per season. This is not one that I would have recommended for the Blues. He's a more than fine and adequate defenseman. Again, another reminder that $6.5 million for Justin Falk. I don't know that he's as good as Gavrikov, but on a 2-year deal instead of a 7-year deal, yeah, it's something I would have been interested in. And it wasn't just one defenseman that they signed. They signed Cody Ceci and they got Brian Dumoulin, so 2 defensemen brought in for it. And we do have some breaking news from Frank Saravalli. Okay. The Dallas Stars are bringing back Radek Faksa for 3 years at $2 million. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that either. I wouldn't have done it. Three. The sweet spot for the Blues was probably what they gave Bjugstad. They said, look, 2 by 1.75, that's the best we can offer you. And he said no. Good for Faksa. Yeah. I mean, if he's going to get a couple $1 million on a 3-year deal, that's rare for a fourth-line center, man. So good for him. He's going back to the place that he spent the vast majority of his career. He's going to be playing for a really good organization with a chance to be able to win a cup next year. Good on him, and good on Doug Armstrong for holding strong on what he wanted. And remember, too, Faksa told us this when the Blues acquired him, and we had him on. He was like, you never want to leave the place that you're at. Like, he spent his entire career in Dallas, and he said, I got traded, and I'm excited to be in St. Louis. He went back to where he wanted to be, and also the no tax situation. So you're getting a little bit more money there on that. So it was a move that made sense, like Jeremy Rutherford reported. You know, when Bjugstad signed, it was kind of this telling sign that Radek Faksa was gone, but that's a really good move for Dallas because it's a bottom line centerman, and we all know how valuable centermen are. But $3 million, that goes to show you what the market is, which tells you Granlund's going to be more expensive than 3 because Dallas couldn't afford to keep him, and it's going to tell you Suter's going to be more than $3 million. Jonathan Drouin just signed 2 years, $4 million per season with the New York Islanders. So that's another winger that is now off of the board as well. A few other signings that I'll go through here real quick. Alex, get your quick reaction, not to them individually, but if one stands out to you maybe above the others. Brock Besser, we've talked about that, sticking with Vancouver, 7x7. Christian Dvorak signed with the Philadelphia Flyers, 1 year, $5.5 million for the centerman. Brandon Tanev's going to Utah, 3 years, $2.5 million per year. Jake Allen, congrats to him. He got a nice deal. 5 years, $1.8 million AAV to stick with the New Jersey Devils. Thatcher Demko, another signing for a goalie, sticking in Vancouver, 3 years, $8.5 per year for him as well. Mitch Marner got traded last night. 8 years, $12 million AAV for the Vegas Golden Knights. And finally, the Panthers signed everybody. Aaron Ekblad, 8x6. Sam Bennett, 8x8. And Brad Marchand was the latest to do so. 6x5.5 is what he's going to be making for the Florida Panthers.
I mean, the Florida Panthers are obviously the one that jumps off the page at you because they just basically kept their entire roster together. I don't know how they do it, and I think they still have $1 million left in cap space. It's wild. By the way, they also signed Jeff Petrie today, who's like a perfect third-line defenseman that's going to probably go up and put 30 points up for him. I don't have one team that stood out to me, BK, but I'll just kind of, in a full encompass of the signings, the Western Conference didn't do much. With the exception of the Vegas Golden Knights, which, I mean, I'm going to be the minority in this. I don't think Vegas got better. I think they're top-heavy, and I think if they lose one guy to an injury, they're screwed. Everybody's just bringing back what they already had. Like,
it's kind of been the theme of free agency thus far.
Like Utah didn't add anything of substance, in my opinion. Nashville just added more defensemen. The Colorado Avalanche traded away a piece. The Winnipeg Jets are losing Nikolai Ehlers and haven't added anything. I don't really know if teams in the Western Conference got exceptionally better. Even the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota didn't do anything, and they needed a center. So I think if I'm looking at a team in the Western Conference right now that really improved, Vegas would probably be number one. I mean, I know it's going to sound homerish, but I think the Blues have to be top 3 in the Western Conference.
They've done a good. They've added.
Yeah.
They've added players that were not already here. So that already just puts them towards the top of the line, if not at the top of the line. All right. With Alex Ferrario and Jordan Deacon, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we're going to give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to see Adam Sandler. That's coming up on October 17th at Enterprise Center. And we will be joined by our guy Tanner, who is down at Centene right now. He was just able to catch up with Doug Armstrong, who met with the media. T-Bone will give us his biggest thoughts on what he learned from his conversation with Doug Armstrong next year on BK and Ferrario.
you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
We have the ability to put Sundqvist in Fasca's spot if we want. We can put Bjugstad in there, and we still have ability to stay in the market. The market dictates also, as I said, there's a number of teams looking for certain players, and players dictate where they want to play also. And so we haven't been involved in some of the things that we want to be involved in, but we're okay with that.
That was Doug Armstrong moments ago talking to the media out at the Centene Community Ice Center. He also said that he views the player that they just traded for, Alex, as a potential top 4 defenseman. Logan Mailloux, 22 years old. They just traded Zach Bolduc for him, and T-Bone was down there talking with Doug Armstrong in that assembled media scrum. T-Bone joins us now here on BK and Ferrario. What was your biggest takeaway and what Doug Armstrong had to say?
Well, my biggest takeaway, boys, was what you heard on the return there, that the Bjugstad signing, it sounds like they brought him in. They view him as potentially a third-line center, but they like that they've got some flexibility still, that they're still kind of scouring the market still, which makes me wonder if they could still be in play for a guy to bring in that could play on that third-line center spot and bump Bjugstad down. And then, as you guys had mentioned as well, they view him as a top 4 defenseman. They didn't want to make that trade of Zach Bolduc. They didn't want to give up on Bolduc, but they had a surplus of wingers and said, hey, it's time for us to make a move, get younger on the blue line, which he said was a big key for them. That way they've got 2 guys that they can view as in their core moving forward, as they've got older defensemen that are going to be coming off the books here shortly in the next year or 2.
So you mentioned my next question, T-Bone. Like, Doug, of course, does not sell the farm when he does these things, but did you get the sense that there's still more to potentially come with St. Louis?
I think so, and I get the sense that it's either potentially both of these or one of these, but I get the sense they're still looking at potentially on the market for maybe a third-line center. Maybe they're in on Granlund or somebody else that they might find out there. And I also got the sense he was asked a question at the very end of the availability about, hey, there's a lot of bodies on this blue line, and he said, yeah, we'll look into it. So I wonder if they're maybe also going to try and explore a potential trade for someone like a Leddy or Justin Falk. I don't think Doug Armstrong's offseason is done just today.
So when you think about what is still out there and having gotten the sense of what Doug Armstrong just told you guys, if you had to predict it right now, what do you think is still to come for the Blues?
I think they're going to sign a third-line center. I think they might be in still on Granlund. That would be my prediction based on the way that he was talking. That's what I think they're going to explore. Maybe they trade one of their defensemen, but that one could have just been kind of speak at the very end. I still get the sense that they're trying to upgrade at third-line center.
Anything else that we need to know, T-Bone?
He made it clear you guys were mentioning size about this Bjugstad signing that they were looking at on this third center spot. He mentioned they clearly wanted to get bigger, both on the blue line and at center position. That was clearly a goal for them coming into the offseason. They felt they had to get bigger with their size, both on the blue line and with their forward group, and that was a big part of how they ended up getting to this spot here today.
T-Bone, great job. I'm sorry.
Nah, it's okay, BK. I'll forgive you.
You hate him, but we'll deal with it tomorrow, T-Bone, as a team, because we're Ferrario and friends.
That's right. I can't wait. I can't wait for Thursday.
That'll be great.
Amen to that. Oh,
great
yeah.
job by T-Bone out there at the Centene Community Ice Center, talking with Doug Armstrong, getting the audio for the boys on the fast lane. They'll be able to play that for you coming up later on this afternoon. T-Bone, we'll talk to you soon, man.
See you guys.
Appreciate you. That's Tanner Hendrickson. Appreciate him hopping on with us briefly here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, coming up here in just a little bit. Is it 2:30 or 2 o'clock?
2 o'clock, I believe.
All right. The Fast Lane, I believe, will have the audio for you. The new defenseman will be doing his first introductory press conference. That is Logan Mailloux. You'll hear from him, I believe, on 101 ESPN coming up at 2:30.
Oh, it is 2:30? Okay.
Here on 101 ESPN. Right now, 314-399-9646 is the Air Covered Service text line. Your chance to score 2 tickets to Adam Sandler. That's coming up on Friday, October 17th at the Enterprise Center. We'll have your opportunity all week long on every show here on the station. But right now is your chance on BK and Ferrario. Earlier today, I made T-Bone very upset by saying a specific phrase. What was that phrase? If you have the correct answer to that question, your texter number 101, you are going home with that pair of tickets to see Adam Sandler on October 17th. Alex, before we get out of here today, we've got about 20 seconds left. Your biggest takeaway from day one of what we've seen thus far from Blues free agency is what?
And I think they improved the future of what this team is for. They traded away an area of surplus for something that they were desperate for. They fixed their blue line in terms of they now are set for the next however many years Mailloux and Broberg are here. There's still a little bit more to be desired, and I wonder if there's still another move coming for the Blues.
Jordan, your biggest takeaway is what?
I'm a happy girl.
Amen.
And I love when connection is consistent.
Yeah, being in the studio makes things a little
Amen
easier.
to that.
I love what the Blues have done this far. I'm very curious to see what Doug Armstrong still has up his sleeve because I don't think we're finished just yet. We'll talk about all of that tomorrow at 11 a.m. For Alex and T-Bone and Jordan Deacon and Craig Rutledge and Mike Ryder and everybody who made today's show possible. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.